Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome to Texas Motor Speedway for the Race Department iRacing Le Mans Series 2012 Summer Tour. Sean Peachin joining you as I do each and every road racing weekend. And joining me this week for the first time, Scott Woodwis. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much, Sean. Hello, everyone, and hopefully I can give you some decent commentary on what hopefully should be a decent afternoon of racing. Yes,
we are in for a unique treat here at Texas Motor Speedway as we now bring multi-class racing with the Le Mans Series back to Texas Motor Speedway for a Roval event that should prove to be quite entertaining. Lots of apex corners, hairpin kind of corners, so it'll be interesting to watch. But before we get too far into 2012 at Texas, let's go back last week to Watkins Glen, or 2 weeks ago rather, Watkins Glen event. So we have a video highlight of that. And starting off with everything, it was interesting at the front of the field as the LMP2 cars went to battle, and Gary Feekins actually was the guy setting the pace early on. He led most of the race, had a great splits, great consistent lap times on track as you see all those beautiful cars coming around Watkins Glen, New York. So it was Gary Feekins who led early, but he was quite bold with his overtaking of some of the GT cars and not necessarily given room. However, it was eventually a GT1 Corvette that would do him in at the end of the race. It would be Hampus Andersson, however, who would be consistent, clean, and putting in the same solid effort that Gary did, only he was rewarded with a win. Ivan Gomez would finish second, a mere 4.8 seconds back after 2 hours of racing. We then went into the GT1 series. The GT1 cars, again, it was a story of attrition for the GT1s. Bralick would lead a majority of the race, but a late race collision on the backstretch while leading with 19 minutes remaining would do him in. And Silva would be put into the prime position to win, but then a spin in the boot would cost him any chance of victory. There was other accidents all over the place, and really coming unscathed. Hafner would come through the race unscathed and win the race there at the very end. So absolutely good drive by him, and was able to hold on and stay out of trouble, which was the name of the game for GT1s. In GT2, it was the Bjorn Spendel show. Bjorn Spendel, a phenomenal driver who's shown through various championships in various different cars that he is the man to beat. He was able to lead pretty much from flag to flag and kept the only guy able to keep pace was David Jordan for the first 40 minutes of that race, but electronic issues would do him in, and he would eventually be disconnected and end his challenge for victory. So a great race that we had in Watkins Glen, and we're hoping that it's much the same here at Texas Motor Speedway today. Scott, what do you think we will be expecting to see here at Texas with these various cars?
We're seeing just a fairly short track. Of course, it's a fairly short oval with a very tricky and twisty road course section. I think definitely the LMP cars out there are going to have quite a difficult time trying to get through the traffic, especially on that very widened road course section, because there's not going to be very much room. I think some of them will have to wait until they get onto the oval, where they can use the straight line, the power advantage, obviously to their advantage, and power past them. I think also that in terms of setup, it's going to be a challenge, because you've got to try and have that trade-off of the straight line speed on the and that low downforce on the oval sections, but still having enough mechanical and aero grip in that middle road course section to set a competitive lap time. I know that going through qualifying into the race, we've seen some pretty decent times so far, but I think overall the main challenge is probably going to be traffic and trying to find the right setup.
All right, well, before we get into today's race, let's talk about the championship. We've got 3 classes, 3 titles still very much in all to play for. Starting in the LMP2 and the HPD ARX 01C, leading the points is Martin Blaise with 31. Second is Lasse Brun Hansen with only 1 point behind. Third is last event's winner, Hampus Andersson. Fourth, Ronnie Fantini, who looks to be starting on pole today. And then P5 is Dmitry Sivkov.
In the Chevrolet Corvette C6R class for GT1, it's Eric Hafner leading the points with 31, ahead of second place Teo Bubicic with 27 points. He's 1 point ahead of Marco Buhin in third with 26, then Hannes Thaler in fourth with 24, and rounding out the top five of the Corvettes is Martin Silva with 23 points.
Going into the Ford GTs in the GT2 class, Bjorn Spindle leads that championship with 40 points. David Jordan is second, 30 points. Third is Silas Greiner. Fourth, Charles Hustetler. And fifth, Dean Allen, who is 23 points behind. So as you see, all these championships still to play for as we come to Texas, which should prove to have quite an interesting impact. And the car count for this particular event is a little bit low, as we're looking at only 16 cars at the moment going to take the green flag.
Yeah, I think some people were expecting probably a lot more. I mean, compared to how we had in Watkins Glen, it looks like there's considerably less turnout for tonight, which I think is a little bit disappointing. But in terms of overall what we've got on the field, we've got 4 LMPs, 4 GT1s, and the biggest class seems to be in the GT2s. We've got 8 Ford GTs on the grid. And also the spread in times is between like the pole time, which is obviously 1:07, all the way down to the slowest time, which is 1:16. So there's a 9-second gap in times, and there's even one driver who hasn't even managed to time as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see the different speed advantages out there in Texas this afternoon.
Yes, well, before we go racing, we did just end our qualifying session, so let's go ahead and give you the results for each class. Starting with the LMP2, as I said earlier, Ronnie Fantini takes pole at a 107.968. Martin Blaze, your points leader, sits second place at a 108.7. Dmitry Sivkov will roll off third position, and the number 70 of Jason Elrod will start fourth and last in the LMP2 class.
Going to the Corvettes in GT1, and on pole position is the number 50 of Teo Bubicic with 1:11.068. He's about half a second quicker than the number 30 of Marco Buhin with 1:11.561. In third place in GT1, the number 15 of Eric Hafner with a 1:11.787. And rounding out the 4 GT1 cars this afternoon is the number 8 of Bogdan Spatachayan with a 1:12.467.
Well, looking into the GT2s, no surprise there. Bjorn Spindle on pole position with a 1:13.422. Oscar Steilen is second at a 1:13.7. Third is number 11, Charles Hustetler. Fourth is going to be the number 63 of Kenny Duval. Fifth, the number 26 of Jarrett Lawson. Then followed by Dennis Garrison, Silas Greiner, and not putting up a time, and apparently not in the race according to the entries list, is David Jordan, as we now roll off for the first pace lap here at Texas Motor Speedway.
So this is going to be a quite intriguing race. So the speed difference between the LMPs and the GT cars is going to be quite phenomenal, and obviously trying to find that setup is going to be quite key. But I think really Ronnie Fantini starting on pole position, this would be a great opportunity for him to score some more points and move up the table. Of course, as we said earlier on, he comes into this race 4th in points and 10 behind leader Martin Blaze, who starts alongside him on the front row. Eric Hafner and Teo Bubicic, of course Bubicic has pole position, so he'll be looking to try and top the table coming out of Texas. And also Bjorn Spindle looking also very quick in qualifying, took pole position, look at that, by about 0.3 of a second, so he's looking to extend his points lead. So the main championship protagonists all seem to be up there at the front, and I think we're, with about the half of the pace lap done already, it's looks like we're looking for a pretty intriguing race as we almost go set to green.
Yes, it shall be interesting to see how those LMP cars deal with the traffic once they catch up, if they catch up. It should be about around 10-15 laps. We'll start to see them catch up to the backmarker GT cars, and let's hope that the attrition is a little bit different this time, as we do have a lot of our championship contenders fighting it out here, so should be all right. But again, with only 4 LMPs, could we see a Corvette at the top step of the podium overall? So that will be interesting to keep our eyes on for sure.
Where it's not unusual for a GT car to win a race overall. If you remember back in, I think it was 2001 at the Daytona 24 Hours, for one thing, it was a Corvette that actually won the race overall. So it's not unusual for it to happen. But as you said, only 4 LMPs. So I mean, if these guys, if the driving standards are the same that we saw back in Watkins Glen, you're right, Sean. We could possibly even see a GT1 car, or even if it gets that drastic, maybe a GT2 car take a win. I think there'd probably have to be a lot of retirements and a lot of rather not so good driving for that to happen. But I think they're starting to form up now. I'm not sure if we've got one more pace of that, but if so, if they are forming up now to say at the start, we're coming to the green for in an elapsed time or right now.
Yes, this should be the start of the race as the Ford Mustang now pulls off, and there it goes, Ronnie Fantini, a great jump as we're now green here at Texas Motor Speedway for 2 hours of Le Mans coverage here on ETV Live.
And a decent start there by Ronnie Fantini as they file into turn 1. He's straight away just broken away from the field, and already has about a 0.7 of a second gap over Martin Blaze. So the 4 LMPs are pretty much line astern, the same order they started, back in the GT1 class. It is Bubicic leading at the moment, but now we've got Hafner going to go down the inside of Eric of Mark the Buhin, and they're side by side, and Hafner almost losing the back end of that car. And in that fact, Bubicic is still leading, of course, and Buhin's decent second. It's back in GT2, but actually Bjorn Spindell challenging the 4th place Corvette of Bogdan Spatachayan. So definitely the GT cars with a rapid start already, but seems to be with only 15 cars on the field, everyone's getting around pretty cleanly.
Yeah, the opening lap appears at this moment anyways to be clean as the HPDs head out onto the banking. But yeah, there's great stuff here in the Corvettes, and now the GT's going to mix it up. Bjorn doing what Bjorn does, and that is pretty much defy all odds when he's in the car. So, but it looks as though we're not going to have any huge changes for position as we head on to complete the first lap here.
I think the order is pretty much exactly the same as we had as they come across, and Fantini leading with a 1.1 second gap, and Sivkov is a further second back with Elrod back again by about another further second. So they seem to be spreading out already. But the battle for GT1's holding up as you've got Bubicic having to fend off the number 30 of Mark Buhin. Buhin goes to the inside down towards turn 3 and covers him off slightly, but I think Buhin will persist, and he's got his nose up the inside, and Buhin takes the lead in GT1. And not only that, but Eric Hafner is now on the outside towards turn 4, trying to come up on the outside of Bubicic, but the 50 holds on for the moment. But Bubicic already starting to go backwards already from his pole position.
Yeah, Bubicic there had a real issue getting into that first heavy braking zone. Gave up the lead there, obviously, and just about gave up 3rd position, but he was able to take control of the car and keep it in 2nd place. It will be interesting to see. I think for the first hour, given the fact that it's going to be a pretty tight race, I think we'll see a lot of these guys kind of take it easy and settle in. So it's so we'll definitely see how that strategy unfolds as we go forward here. So as the first laps are in the books, the field has spread out, and we have had that pass for the GT1 lead. So yes, Marco Buhin there taking over from Theo Bubicic as they head down. Oh, now look at that. Now Marco's run wide going into that heavy brake zone. So again, that's going to be the story of the day, is trying to get the car stopped for these slow apex corners as he goes, and now he's run off wide and run into the grass there. That's exactly what he did not want to see. The car all out of shape going through that middle section of the road.
Very ambitious there from Buhin. He now finds himself in 3rd place. Actually, look at that. He's dropped way back in. Oh no, the GT2 has got spun off into the infield. That's Bjorn Spindell, and he's 9th overall. He's leader of the GT class. He's now dropped to, I think, 11th place now, or is it 12th in the number 89? So the 89 of Bjorn Spindell falling back down to the 12th. He's gone to the back now of the GT2 field. That's a disaster. So after a fantastic qualifying effort, the 89 of Bjorn Spindell finds himself at the back of the field, and the GT lead's now been taken over by what is our 9th place overall leading GT. Now the number 40 of Oscar Sala, and he now has a fairly substantial gap into 2nd placed Kenny Duval in the number 63, and he's holding a slight gap to 3rd placed and 12th overall is Dennis Garrison in the 02 G4 GT. So it seems to have gone from bad to worse, from a dream start to a nightmare for Spindell, but he's already made it up 1 place into 14th overall and 6th in the GT2s, and he's gone past the number 32 of Silas Grainer. So he's definitely trying to redeem himself from the mistake that he made pretty much a lap ago.
Yes, and we have more drama for what was the lead Corvette there. I mean, just not. I don't know what it is about Marco Buben's car currently, the number 30 Chevrolet Corvette with a nice Lotus-looking livery, but it's certainly all gone wrong for him, as a lot of the GT40 or the GT2 cars have got around him. It just seems as though his car obviously set up to run well on the oval section, but he's just got no grip and no power or control through this road section, as he's run wide a number of times. As we see some of the other GT cars running wide, number 89 Bjorn Spindle gets around yet another car as he makes his way back to the front, and that was a really odd mistake actually for Spindle. If we've watched him as much as I have in recent months, I mean, the guy is just ice cold and does not make mistakes. But even this tricky Texas road course / oval, I guess roval if you want to call it, has really even caught him out. So that just speaks to the testament of how tricky this really is.
How about the front in the LMP2 class? The number 19 of Ronnie Fantini already starting to stretch his advantage to what is a 2.1 second lead over second placed number 73, which is Martin Blaze, and he's only just ahead now. He's actually fallen back slightly to the number 75 in third of Dmitry Sivkov, and then trying to hang on to their coattails in fourth in class and overall is number 70 of Jason Elrod. But Bubicic's now back in fifth, and leading GT1 overall is now under pressure from the 15 of Eric Hafner in sixth. So these two are starting to battle away, and Roddy Buhin now trying to make his way back up through the field as another GT car goes off the track, and that looks like that was Garrison in the 0-2. So Garrison loses another spot, and Buhin moves up to what should be, I think, 10th place overall, and he's now going to come onto the back of a number 63, which is going to be second in GT2, and that's of Kenny Duval. So Buhin already starting his charge back up through the field, and don't forget, we've only had 10 minutes elapsed, so we've still got an hour and 50 minutes to go. So it's not all over yet for Buhin, but he's got a long afternoon ahead of him to try and get himself back up into potentially a podium position in the GT1s.
Yeah, still all to play for. It certainly is interesting watching these guys struggling for grip in these rear-wheel drive cars, trying to get the power down through that small road section. Is really proven to be most difficult for all of these drivers, as they just really look forward to getting back onto the oval so they can put the pedal down and get that power. So the downforce, obviously not going to have a lot of downforce here, and it's definitely showing through all the classes really, as we have Celis Griner in the number 32 GT car run wide there going into the road section. So yeah, it's going to be the story of the day, is who can keep the car between the lines and get through this tricky road section the fastest and the cleanest.
Closest battle on track appears to be at the moment. There's a couple of battles on track. If we look at the battle for GT1 now, gap's roughly about 0.4 of a second. Of course, in 5th place overall, leading GT1, of course, is number 50 of Teo Bubicic. And it seems to be that he's still got the number 15 of Eric Hafner behind in 6th, and 2nd overall in GT1 for company, as they head off of turn 2 and onto the road, actually into the road section, and Hafner closes up under braking slightly, hugs the apex of turn 3, and then just struggling a little bit to get the power down, just caught the rear end of that car, just sliding a little bit, but it seems to be that Bubicic isn't being allowed to get away, because Hafner's not letting him run away too far. And back in GT2, I'm going to quickly have a look and see that Buhin has now got past, I believe, Oscar Salin, so he's clear for GT2 cars. He's up to 8th overall and now 4th in the GT1s. And now he's got to make up what is about a 9-second gap now to Spatacane in 3rd, and so that's the number 8 car in 7th overall and 3rd in GT1s. So he's definitely got some work to do, but as I said, long way to go, so it's not over yet.
Yeah, I mean, you can just tell how small that road section really is here at Texas Motor Speedway. You come down the backstretch of the oval, and I mean, if you look at it from a bird's eye view, I mean, you see the road section, and then you automatically see the oval again. So I mean, it's really not that much, not that much time spent. As you say, as you watch here, we got Marco making his way out onto the oval side of it in the GT1s. So the number 30 Corvette, as you stated, certainly trying to make up ground after his disastrous start. And in GT2, number 89 Bjorn Spindle, who is also now back onto the oval section. So he's looking to claw back all the time that he's lost. So he's currently sitting 4th in the GT2 class. So interesting stuff as we watch this unfold. But at the front, like you said, it's all Ronnie Fantini. He's got a 4.5 second lead over the number 73 of Martin Blaze. So it's all going right for him anyways, but again, it's not I guess it's not that big of a gap to where he couldn't close that down, like I said, in that last hour when we really start to see people put the power down and maybe take some more chances.
I think I've spotted Bjorn Spindle. Something interesting. I watched the 0-2 of Darius Garrison. He seemed to either miss a shift or just slow for some reason, and he actually let Bjorn Spindle through in the 89. So Bjorn's back up to third in GT2 now in the 89 in the blue and red car. But it was weird. I watched him on the front stretch going to turns 1 and 2, and Garrison just seemed to hand the place over to him. I'm not quite sure what was going on, as he's now running around there. Doesn't seem to have a problem at all, but it's a rather weird way he did that. But now Spindle's now got to try and make up the gap of, I think, roughly about 3 odd seconds or so to Kane Duvall's second. He's not too far up the road in the 63. And in GT1, looking back at Buhin, he's now got about a 7-second gap to make up over Spadachain. So who's now closed up on Eric Hafner. So I think Hafner somewhere's had a bit of a mishap somewhere in the 15. I think second in GT2, but he's lost a lot of gap, quite a gap now to Bubicic. Whether he's had a spin up somewhere in turn 3 or lost it somewhere in the first part of the oval section, I'm not quite sure. But
he's actually put it in the tires. Scott,
wow.
Honestly, coming down the down that oval section into the first, and he's just run wide and went hard into the tires. That being Eric Hafner, the number 15. So he came into that heavy road section, was really late into the braking, and just slid through the brake area, through the whole corner, honestly, and put the car heavy into the tires. So he will probably not last much longer, depending on the damage. It may have been a flush hit, but still, he hit it at a decent click going into that road section of the course.
Yeah, just watching it here, I might be just completely lost the braking, just went wide and just stuffed it into the tyre barrier. And I think possibly that he's probably lucky not to be carrying too much any suspension damage if he hasn't. And Spadachain almost got to look up the outside, but Hafner was wise to that, and the 15 car still holding second place for the moment. At the moment back in LMP2, seems to be that Fantini in the number 19 all on his own with about a 5-second gap to Martin Blaze, the championship leader. It seems to be that Fantini's making a name for himself. He's only 4th in the points coming into Texas, so I think Fantini's definitely using this opportunity where there's a rather thin LMP2 field, using it to his advantage on the pole position to try and edge himself up the points a bit further. Like I said, 4th in points, only about 10 behind the leader, Martin Blaze. So any points he can take out of him is big or small. Every little helps, as they say over here in the UK for Tesco. So
yeah, certainly the number 19, Ronnie Fantini, he is going to be looking to close that points gap up into the next round, and it is Martin Blaze who is second. So if there's the man that he has to beat, he is beating him at the moment, and rather soundly. So definitely looking to take as many points as possible. And a lot of these guys, it'll be interesting to see the ideas or the thoughts really behind some of these guys. If they're really looks like we got Ronnie Fantini on the apron there. I guess that's the preferred line around Texas. But it will be interesting to see these guys if they write. I mean, there's not very many rounds in this championship, so it'll be interesting. I mean, you can't really write this round off because of its unique course layout. So I don't know exactly where the rest of the championship contenders are, as I would have thought this would have been a great opportunity as we see Fantini going around some of the GT2 backmarker traffic here. I thought that for sure that they would have come out and tried to close whatever points gap they possibly could going into the next round.
Let's take a look at what's happening then. The closest battle again seems to be, I think, Spadachain. He's doing a pretty decent job in the number 8 car, third in class. Definitely looking as though he can keep onto the coattails of Eric Hafner. It just seems to be that I think the instant which the Hafner had with the tyre barrier a couple of laps ago, I think it's affected his car slightly because he's not as quick as he possibly was before compared to Spadachain behind him. He's not.
Yeah, he's certainly off the pace there, as it was a 1:13. It looks like that he's running, and even Marco Buin there at the end is running back in the 4th position, the number 30 Lotus Corvette. He's running 1:12.4, so he's definitely closing in on Spadachain there. And Hafner, with whatever damage it is, whether it be aero or suspension, is certainly having a hard time. And surely that is coming to play once they hit the oval, as aero dynamics is going to be the most important there, and it looks like he doesn't have that after that contact, so definitely a reason why he is going a little bit slow. But here we are, we're well and truly underway here. It looks like about an hour and 45 minutes left. Let's go ahead and toss it over for a quick commercial break as we pay the bills. We have to pay the bills, so we will be right back after this word.
Hey, JD here with ETV Live, and let me tell you something. If it's too big for the pickup truck and you need to move it, there's only one trucking company you need to call, and don't bother with the Yellow Pages Cowboy. I'll give you that number in a minute. Manufactured goods, automotive, technical equipment, furniture, even if you need a reefer, Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated is the only choice, Cowboy. With locations in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, Rancho Cucamonga, California, if you need to move it, store it, and keep it cold, you need to call Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated. Long haul, short haul, or just across town, Gary Mercer has the best trained and qualified drivers to get your load from point A to point B with professionalism and on time. So remember, Hoss, if it don't fit in a pickup truck, you're going to need a real truck, Cowboy. Sponsors of ETV Live's Friday Night Showdown, Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated, 1-800-668-2980.
And welcome back to Texas Motor Speedway as we are here with Race Department and the 2 hours here at Texas Motor Speedway, the Roval race. As we've now, take a look at the rundown here. Nothing's changed overly dramatic since commercial break. We've got Ronnie Fantini still leading the LMP2 cars in that number 19. He's got about a 6-second gap over Martin Blaze, who is being chased by Dmitry Sivkov, and fourth in LMP2 is the number 70 of Jason Elrod, as it's been since the start. Fifth place in overall and first in the GT1 is Teo Bubicic, who leads over Eric Hafner, who had that incident before commercial break. And then now, third in class is Marco Boone, who's made up that time and got around Bogdan Spadacheyan. And then we go down into the GT2 field. We have Oscar Salen in first. Bjorn Spindle now has gotten back up to second in class and is coming after Oscar Salen as we speak. Kenny Duval is third. Jarrett Lawson fourth. Hustetler is fifth. Silas Greiner is sixth. Then rounding it out is Dennis Garrison, who is a number of laps down to his fellow GT2 compatriots. So far it's pretty good racing. The field is spread out quite a bit as we now go back and focus on the leader, Ronnie Fantini, who continues to lengthen that gap between himself and Martin Blaze. Again, as we mentioned before commercial break, this is going to be huge for Martin and his championship aspirations, as we have a low car count for this race. It's going to definitely help him out, as you now see him again go to the apron. Some rummagings around on some forums and chats say that is actually illegal. I don't know. I'd like to see what the chat room thinks about that. Honestly, we got a huge chat room stuff going at the moment, so I'd like to know what they think about that, using the apron on the inside. As we see now, Fantini get around another GT car there, heading into the road section. Scott, welcome back. Thought we had a little bit of a technical glitch there. Welcome back to the race.
Cheers, man. I was just trying to set up a whisper list for you guys, but I'm all sorted now, so hopefully I can get that sorted and we can carry on. One thing I was going to mention before we went to the break was that I'm really impressed at the fact that actually he's already passed Spadachain now. The number 30 of Buchan is absolutely flying back up through towards the GTs. He's now currently running third in Class 3. He's definitely good for a podium, and he's only about, from what I can see, about 2 seconds behind the number 15 of Hafner. So he's definitely on the charge after his mistake early on.
Yeah, well, looking at the laps, it looks like Marco's running about the same as the class leader there, Bubicic, who both they're running about 112.9s through this course. So it's going to be taking some doing to catch back up to Tio there. But yeah, he is doing. You're right. He is doing a phenomenal job, and you've got to think with Eric Hafner's damage that he sustained in that impact with the tire barrier that he should be easy pickings for Marco, and we'll see a Boo and Bubicic fight for the lead before this race is over.
We can already see if you look at number 19, Ronnie Fantini, he's already starting to file his way through the GT1 cars. He's just gone past Buchan number 30. Now he's just going up to make mincemeat, if you like, of the number 15 of Hafner. If he can gingerly move out of the way, which is watching Fantini as he tries to make his way past. And indeed he does. So next target, of course, will be Bubicic in the leading GT1, excuse me. And then, of course, he's got a sizable gap to try and catch up to the 70 of Jason Elrod, who
There's
is.
Buchan actually, in that same breath that you were speaking, overtook Hafner for second position in class.
Yes, he did. There we go. I was fully concentrating on Fantini's car, and actually myself missed the overtake. So that means now Buchan continues his charge up through the field, back up to second, and now he's going to have to make up the gap. Looking ahead, let's have a look at the gaps between the GT2 cars. I hope you can see the gaps between individually, but let me have a look and see what's going on here. Let's see, Bubicic he's currently going through the chicane at the middle of the course section, so Buchan's got some work to do to try and catch up to him, but of course at the rate he's going, I actually would probably even put him in a really decent chance of possibly winning GT1 overall with the rate he's going at the moment.
Yeah, he is moving at a very, very high rate of speed to make up for that mistake early on. And it looks like, for the most part, the drivers have settled into a rhythm here at Texas. That road course section was really catching a lot of people out under full fuel load and cold tires, really having a hard time keeping the car on the road. And even some, as we've got a GT2 car just about go around there. I believe that was there it is, the number 32 of Silas Greiner coming back onto the oval. The car was sideways and not able to get the power down. But it looks like these guys have kind of taken control of these cars and are not having as many problems as we've seen early on.
Absolutely, I think there does seem to be enough room on the oval at the moment for there to be lapping the back markers. As you can really see, I can see the GT1 cars and they're getting past the GT2s. I think the first car they've just gone past, or the second one they've just got through, is the number 32 of Silas Greiner, as they're also having to watch out because the second placed overall and LMP2 driver Martin Blaze is now going to make his way through the traffic. So he's currently, as far as I can see, at the stripe. He was 6.9 seconds behind Fantini. So Blaze, the championship leader, is not having it all his way this afternoon. He's definitely having one or two difficulties with the Texas Motor Speedway circuit, but in terms of who favours the circuit the most, it's all going Fantini's way so far.
Yeah, so far it is all Ronnie Fantini, as he has a 6.9 second, we'll call it probably 7 seconds at the line, as he now goes back onto the apron portion of the track. And I didn't see anybody in the chat room raise too much of an issue with racing around on the apron like that. I know that when they use the NASCAR section of that racetrack, it's always don't go below on the apron, you're going to lose it. But here in these sports cars, they've got the grip and the downforce necessary to run quickly up there and move back onto the banking with little problems.
Interesting one here from looking at some of the people in the chat talking about how. Just a note from JDR, kind of broadcast engineer, saying there's no more than 2 wheels are allowed across the line. So I did see 1 or 2 drivers were dipping into what, if you like, the apron on the inside through turns 3 and 4, coming out of the road course section. So I think obviously if some of the drivers continue that, they will find themselves in trouble from the race stewards. But quickly wants to touch on the battle for GT2. And remember Bjorn Spindell in the number 89, running 10th overall, second in class. He's now actually caught up right to the tail of class leader at number 40, Oscar Salin. as they head off the oval back onto the road course. And he's been definitely being resurgent. He was lightning quick in practice, grabbed pole position by almost about 3-4 tenths, maybe half second in qualifying. He's been, after his mistake in the first couple of laps, had a same kind of similar kind of charge that Marco Buen's been on in GT1, and he's definitely in with a shout now to reclaim his lead as they head towards, I believe it's turn 7, which is really tight hairpin then, and they'll head up towards the left-hander at turn 8 before they come back onto the oval into turns. What is on this road course is turns 9 and 10, but of course on the oval is turns 3 and 4, and Spindell definitely looks as though he's in striking distance to grab a toe as they head through the second part of the oval, and he is in there in the slipstream. So I think that Spindell has got the pace so far to early on, as we're coming up to the half an hour mark. He's definitely got the pace to, I think he's going to take the lead in the next couple of laps or so, maybe even on this lap if he gets close enough.
Yeah, as you look now, watch Bjorn Spindell drawing ever so menacingly close to Oscar Salen's GT2 car in the battle for the lead. Bjorn's going to take a higher line around the oval and try to set himself up with more momentum heading into braking. As they now head in, he draws right up on the back there. A little bit of pressure. It looks like he's going to get him right here as they try to struggle to put the power down. So Oscar able to hold the position, but for how long, as now Bjorn is filling his mirrors, and no doubt that must be an unnerving sight for Oscar, knowing the caliber of driver that Bjorn is and the pace that he's showing at the moment. He's got to be a little bit concerned with holding on to that lead position in the GT2 class.
Oscar went very wide into turn 3, and obviously that allowed Bjorn just to pull alongside ever so slightly, but Oscar held onto the inside line going into turn 4, and you see that Bjorn really closing under braking as they head back onto the section. This time he's a lot closer in the section than was a lap ago at this point on the circuit as they go through turns 3 and 4 on the oval. And Bjorn, I think maybe just biding his time a bit, just edging closer and closer lap by lap. So I think really just he doesn't want to make a rash decision and just make a split-second move. But look at that, he's getting extremely close as they head on to turns 1 and 2 into the oval. And Bjorn goes high on the banking. And look at that, he's using the power. In fact, I think he might have a go at getting himself around the outside towards turn 3.
Yeah, good stuff there out of Bjorn Spindell as they go into braking. He's not there to make it. He's going to try to tuck up and under there, and he's going to try to get a run in the next section of the track there. But yeah, Bjorn pulling really close on the oval and trying to make the move on the outside, which was ambitious to say the least, but it has put him right there. So I think that we will see that GT2 lead change within the next lap. But great job by Oscar Salen doing everything he can to keep Bjorn Spindell's car back and out of that lead. As they now... This
is the closest battle that seems to be on track then, and I think Solon will definitely be looking in his mirrors because he'll be full of red and blue GT, and again Solon goes a bit wide. Spindell takes the tighter line, and again he's closer than he was a lap before, and again now he's really into that slipstream through the turns 3 and 4 banking on the oval, and Spindell sniffs the class lead. He's definitely got it in his sights. And Starlin in the 40 is going to have to really watch out for Spindell in the 89s. They head across the start-finish straight. Spindell goes high again into turn 1 and spat a chair. Just spotted either he's pitted or he's made a mistake because he's dropped down to 10th overall. So I think he's possibly in the pit somewhere. Again, Spindell doesn't seem to have the power or the straight line speed as they went through the oval. And again, and that's Starlin wide, and there goes Spindell up the inside. So Spindell reclaims his class lead then in GT2. And capitalises again from a mistake down at turn 3 for Salin. So Salin now I think possibly will try and fight hard to take that position back again. But I fear that it's going to be a battle that he's eventually going to lose. I think he's just going to watch Spindell drive away in the distance. And I think at this rate he'll be running away with the class lead.
Yeah, the key thing here for Oscar is going to be in that number 40 GT car is to not do anything rash. He's lost that class lead to Spindell. He almost had to think it was going to happen sooner or later. Now for him, he just needs to keep the car in good shape and put down solid laps and not try to force the issue with Bjorn and hope that eventually down the road, some kind of misfortune strikes Bjorn to get that lead back. But I think you're right. I think overall, I think this is going to be a battle that he's eventually going to lose as Bjorn has just got absolute lightning pace around this circuit. He's now put up a 114.6 to Oscar's 115.5, so nearly a second there. quicker that lap. So he's gonna need a little bit of help, or he might just be holding back a little bit for that last hour. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I'll quickly switch to what's happened in LMP2. We've had a switch for second place, I've noticed, on track. Number 75, Dmitry Sivkov, in the white NVIDIA-sponsored car, has taken second place from championship leader Martin Blaze in the 73. And that's happened somewhere in the last couple of laps, and the gap is roughly, I'd say, about 2.5 seconds or so. So Blaze is going to have to try and step it up, and I've noticed that it was actually Spatachan going back to him in the number 8 Corvette, 4th in GT2, GT1 and 10th overall. He has made a pit stop. I did see him trundling out of the pits in that number 8 Corvette, and he's now chasing down in number 26 in front of him of Jarrett Lawson. It's kind of like the hunter and his prey, and I think that Jarrett Lawson's about to be caught back. Yes, he is. Swiftly moves out of the way and relinquishes 10th place to Spatachan. But yeah, we have a change, of course, in the podium positions. Second place now Sivkov, and I wonder what he's going to try and do now to try and close in on Fantini, who's just been simply dominating this afternoon so far, as we've now gone past the half-hour mark, so we're a quarter of the way through here this 2-hour race here in the Race Department Summer Tour Le Mans Series race at Texas Motor Speedway. And Sivkov then, his mission, should he choose to accept it, is to try and close in on Fantini, who's now lapping the GT2 lead battle now between Spindell and Sahin. I think that's allowed Sahin to close in now that he's having to let the leader through, but definitely starting to hot up a bit more in the battle behind Fantini. And as for Jason Elrod back in fourth, he's been kind of on his own at the moment back there. He's 5 seconds off third place Martin Blaze. He's definitely trying to up his pace a bit more, but he's not really making very much progress, which is a shame, because the number 70 car is doesn't seem to have the pace of the 3 cars in front of him today.
Not at all. It's 21-second lead now for Ronnie Fantini over number 75 of Dmitry Sivkov. And one thing that Fantini's loving right now is the fact that Sivkov was able to get around that third place car, Martin Blaze, your championship leader overall. So Fantini definitely is hoping perhaps that Jason Elrod will be able to do the same and put Martin Blaze in the last position for the LMP2 category in his hopes of closing in on that championship. So huge weekend for Fantini if he can hold it all together thus far. And one of the interesting things that I think I want to see anyways going forward from this is, as we mentioned, Fantini had all the wheels below the apron there for a few laps. If you go to the number 19 of Ronnie Fantini, as he's working his way through the road course section at the moment, but it looks as though, to me anyways, all 4 tires when he runs that apron line have been below the apron, and if that is in fact the case, that is going to be a huge time penalty for Fantini, and perhaps even dock the race win, honestly. So I would like to see, as now Fantini heading back onto the oval section, let's see if he in fact does go. And yes, all 4 tires are below the white line. Again, our broadcast engineer JD said that 2 tires have to be above the white line, and that is clearly not the case here. And it's going to be interesting because the race stewards may not see kindly on that as we go into the post-race activities. So definitely something that we're going to want to keep our eyes on going forward.
Overshes to the first round of pit stops coming up soon. Of course, we've already had Spatachan make his first stop, and looking back to some of the other drivers back in here. Just have a look back behind the battle for GT2. Third place, of course, was Jarrett Lawson, number 26, running 11th overall in a National Guard sponsored car. And then behind him, not too far back, is the number 11 in 4th overall, 12th. Oh, just as I catch him, commentator's curse. Charles Hofstetler in number 11 has half spun on the exit of the road course section, gets it going again, and I can hear a LMP2 car, and that is in fact the leader, so he spun just in front of where the leader was. And again, we're seeing Fantini running 4 wheels on the apron. So I think, as you said there, Sean, he'll either get himself a massive time penalty, or I even wouldn't be surprised if he gets himself disqualified as a result, because, obviously, race director, as I said, our broadcast engineer JD has already said no more than 2 wheels below the apron, and he's consistently doing that lap after lap. So I think he'll find himself possibly, his race win will be short-lived, because I do have a feeling that if he keeps it up, unless he's told by his team at all, or he's told over the radio that he needs to kind of quit it, but if he keeps it up for the remainder of the race, then I'm pretty sure that win will not stand anytime soon after the finish.
Yeah, from the race department, actual Le Mans Summer Tour rulebook we have here, do not deliberately cut the track. The white or yellow lines mark the edge of the road. Do not cross them with more than 2 wheels. And as we've seen clearly now multiple times, leader of the race overall, Ronnie Fantini, has put 4 wheels down on that apron and is essentially cutting the course. Now, I know that some purists would say, well, if there's pavement there, let's let him race on it. But clearly the rules state that you cannot do that, and Ronnie Fantini, as we see dipped, he's been dipping below that the whole time. So, yep, I would not be surprised if our overall race winner is excluded from the results at the end of the day. So, maybe not. Maybe that's what has been relayed to Martin Blaze as well. Hey, Ronnie is cutting the track. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Just run your race. He's going to get excluded, and then that's going to be that, and our championship lead will be intact.
So effectively, if it's the case, what we're looking at, if we look at about the second between Sivkov and Blaze in the 75 and 73, effectively, not to discount Fantini, because it looks as though really if he continues what he's doing, it looks as though his race win is going to be taken away, but of course we'll find out until after the race. But effectively, if you like, the battle which is going between Sivkov and Blaze is effectively the net battle for the lead. And as I said, that commentator's curse again. There goes Sivkov spinning onto the infield, and that's gifted second place to Martin Blaze. And that's rather unfortunate. Sivkov was doing a great job. I think he may have been distracted by some of the GT cars in front of him. And Blaze himself was only about 1 point less than 1.5 seconds behind. And look at that. Now that's allowed Jason to close it as well. So effectively, this could be a battle for the 3 podium positions between those 3 LMPs. But now Blaze has now gone into second place, and obviously not lapping on the same pace as Fantini up front. In fact, maybe possibly, I think Sivkov almost slid into turn 7, I think it was. So maybe Sivkov's overused this a bit more and kind of overdriven the car, and again he is very wide, and that's a spun, and I think that possibly that's the class leader. That's the GT1 class leader. That's Teo Bubicic in the 50. And he's spun, and there's some damage on the front of that car as well, so he's definitely taken a clout of the wall somewhere. And I'll see if we can have a look at that on the replay. I'm going to quickly rewind and see what's happened.
It looks like on the last part of the road course there, Bubicic got a good run heading into the final hairpin corner going on into the oval, and he actually just lost it. And lost it there on the straight part and put hard contact with front of that car to that Armco barrier there. So yeah, that is going to be some devastating damage, honestly, and probably is going to end his chances of victory here.
He's in the pit now. The number 50 car is in the pits now, and that, as a result, has handed the race lead to, of all people, Marco Buhin. Remember, after his mistake early on, he has now managed to claw his way back up, and he does find himself now in the GT1 lead in that number 30 car. And Bubicic again, of course, still in the pits. As Eric Hafner has already gone through, so that will now be second place to him. And then Bogdat, and also we've had Spindell's going to come through in a second. As is going to be Salin and Spadachain as well in the number 8 car. So he's definitely gone from what was a perfect start for Bubicic, who is now leaving the pit lane now. And that front end has been repaired, so he's now back out in what I think is 3rd place. He is then out there to try and at least try and hold on to a 3rd place, but he's going to have to really go some to try and catch up to Buhin and Hafner again. He may reclaim it back in the pit stops. He may have treated that as a pit stop at the same time, so he may have gone ahead and made a couple of setup adjustments and taken a fresh set of tyres and refueled at the same time. So maybe he may have switched his strategy to capitalise on that, but Bubicic's got it all to do. In fact, he does actually hold 2nd place for the moment, as we can see. But no, it's gone back down to 3rd place as Hafner crossed the line. So currently then, Buhin leads in the 30. From Hafner in the 15 and Bubicic in the 50, and we're now up to 42 minutes gone on the race, so we're coming close to halfway in distance then here at Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah, we're starting to get close to that last hour mark where we're going to see people, especially those LMP2 guys, start to take some more chances and really push the issue. But as I watch Bubicic after that pit stop, it'll be interesting to see what kind of lap times he's able to lay down after that damage, because it looked, to me anyways, that was going to be some significant damage to the front of that Chevrolet Corvette. And, I don't know whether or not they were able to fix it all into that pit stop, but you're right, he's surely had to have changed his strategy in hopes of reclaiming some kind of a position on the podium before it's all over. So,
and whilst we're waiting to see what the LMP1 cars will do. Just a quick bit of history on Texas Motor Speedway. It's not the first time it's hosted a Le Mans Series race like this. Back in 2000-2001, it's hosted around the American Le Mans Series Championship, and I've got the Wikipedia page in front of me here for a second. Back in 2000, it was Frank Beal and Manuel Pirro in an Audi R8 which took the LMP win. Back in the GTS class, which effectively was GT1 in those days, it was an Andy Pilgrim, Ron Fellows Corvette racing victory. And then it was Randy Pobst and Bruno Lambert in the Alex Job racing Porsche. And in 2001, it was again Audi R8 with Tom Christensen and Ronaldo Capello in an Audi R8. The GTS class won again by Fellows alongside Johnny O'Connell in the Corvette, and Lucas Law and Sasha Masson again for Alex Job Racing in the Porsche 911. So it's not the first time that LMS that we've seen an event like this on a roval, a road course oval, but it's evident that even the American Le Mans Series finds time to race on one of these tracks before. It's not the longest of tracks, but definitely in terms of when it gets to quite a few cars on track at once, it hopefully produces some really good racing as we've seen so far.
Indeed, and I mean, what has that Audi not done in sports car history? Obviously, they've won pretty much anywhere that they've ever taken them things. So, but yeah, it looks as though at the moment, at the top of the field, we've got the number 19 of Ronnie Fantini still leading this race. So he's still doing what he does, using that kind of unorthodox line. And then Martin Blaze sitting back in second place. So what started out as being kind of a spotty weekend may all go in Martin Blaze's favor before it's all said and done, as he sits about 27 seconds back. And let's see, I think on the calendar we've got we do have some real life racing on TV. I know that we've got the NASCAR Nationwide Series currently at Watkins Glen, where we were last with this Le Mans Summer Championship Tour. So those guys at Watkins Glen, as well as we have the I believe the Grand Am Series is there as well this weekend. So quite a bit of action that you can catch. Check your local listings for this week's real live racing throughout NASCAR and Grand Am. But we are here at Texas Motor Speedway bringing you the Race Department 2012 Le Mans Summer Tour. Ronnie Fantini leads by 27 seconds, and we're going to go ahead and take it back to a commercial. We will be right back.
Hey dude, are you ready to rock and roll? If that's cool, then you need to do it over at HD Radio Network. HD Radio Network, 4 stations broadcasting 24/7 with everything from metal favorites to the 80s classic rock like legendary Leonard Skinner, Electric Light Orchestra, Foreigner, and bone-rattling, skull-crushing rock and roll on hard driving radio. And partnered with Nuff World Simulation Gaming, check out the HD Radio Network's Nuff Radio with Bear Factory, Stone Temple Pilots, Def Leppard, and a whole lot more. HDRadionetwork.com. Take your pick and rock your brains out, dude. Hey, JD here with ETV Live, and let me tell you something. If it's too big for the pickup truck and you need to move it, there's only one trucking company you need to call, and don't bother with the Yellow Pages, cowboy. I'll give you that number in a minute. Manufactured goods, automotive, technical equipment, furniture, even if you need a reefer, Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated is the only choice, cowboy. With locations in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, Rancho Cucamonga, California, if you need to move it, store it, and keep it cold, you need to call Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated. Long haul, short haul, or just across town, Gary Mercer has the best trained and qualified drivers to get your load from point A to point B with professionalism and on time. So remember, Hoss, if it don't fit in a pickup truck, you're going to need a real truck, cowboy. Sponsors of ETV Live's Friday Night Showdown, Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated, 1-800-668-2980.
All right, and we are back here at Texas Motor Speedway for the Race Department 2012 Le Mans Summer Tour here at this unique Roval facility. And Scott, while we were away at commercial break, we did have some green flag pit stops for some of our LMP2 guys.
We did indeed, Sean. We had Martin Blaze, who was running in second place, has made his pit stop back in this. He's now obviously running last in the LMP2s in number 73, but directly ahead, the battle I want to focus on now is the battle for second place between the 75 of Dmitry Sivkov and the 70 of Jason Elrod. They've made their way past one of the the recovering Teo Bubicic after his off earlier on, and these two are heading back onto turns 3 and 4 on the oval, so they're heading through. Elrod now starting to bring himself into contention now. We did say earlier on he wasn't looking too much on the pace, but he's definitely stepped it up, and maybe he's even listened to the broadcast and started to get his foot down, because he's definitely closing in. Gap is now only about 0.4 of a second as they fly through turns 1 and 2, and he's definitely in the toe now as these two HPDs fly up towards the end of the road course, up towards the entrance of the road course, and you can see there that Sivkov goes deep, and Elrod takes the wide line in, the proper racing line, but Elrod's definitely upped his pace now, and he's on the back of the Nvidia's backed car, so this is going to be a case now between second and third between these two. And but at the moment, again, Ronnie Fantini for the moment has the race lead, but of course we're still debating that that rule with the two wheels across the white line. He's using essentially all the apron. Of course, it does state it in the rule, but you can't have more than 2 wheels across the white line, so and that's exactly what he's doing. So whether or not that win will still stand, we'll have to wait until the end of the race.
Yeah, as we now watch this battle for second place overall in this race, Jason Elrod and Dmitry Sivkov. It looks like Sivkov now able to stretch a little bit here on Elrod. So I don't know if it's a downforce thing or what, but yeah, it looks definitely like Sivkov has an advantage on the straightaway, and it'll be interesting to see Elrod push that. Perhaps it may have been his strategy the whole time to hold back until we got into the second hour, as that is kind of approaching. As you can see under braking, Elrod, I mean, just draws right up on the back on, just as we say, he's wiggled there, trying to get the power down, so that HPD squirming under acceleration as he's trying to draw up on the back of Sivkov for second place overall, and essentially, like we continuously say, could be for the race win, so we don't even know where the race is going to be won and lost, honestly.
Absolutely, and whilst we're talking there, we've had a GT2 pit stop. We've had Charles Hofstetler, in number 11, has made a visit to his crew, and he's headed back out, currently running third in the GT2 class, number 11, and he's headed back out, and I think he's relinquished one place to, we've got another car in the pits actually. We've got second place now, Bjorn Spindel in the 89, he's in the pits making his stop. And also a quick note is, we missed it quite a while ago, but we have had one car retire, and that is the 02 of Dennis Garrison is out of the race, so that's quite unfortunate. One and only retirement here this afternoon at Texas Motor Speedway. As we've also got another car in the pits, it's a 32 of Silas Grainer, so it seems to be this is the time now, as we've now coming up to the hour mark and to the halfway point in the race, where the pit stops are starting to happen. The GT2 cars seem to be the ones that are making their stops first. We've already had Martin Blaze in the 73 make his stop. Now it's kind of crucial when we'll see the likes of Fantini, Sivkov, Elrod, and also the leading GT cars, of course, of Buhin. Bubicic, again, who was really stopped after his incident earlier on, and of course Hafner as well, who's currently being lapped by Blaze in the 73. So I think we're going to be seeing some pit stops, I would have thought, in the next few minutes, roughly hovering around the hour mark. So I think definitely we're going to see either a traffic jam in the pits or the sleigh start to funnel in one by one.
Yeah, and an interesting thing with Bubicic is he is running a pretty good pace here, but he's had an incident actually just while we were talking about the other pit stops. Teo Bubicic coming off onto the road section there, the number 50 Chevrolet Corvette. And as he was trying to make his way around, he made some contact with a Ford GT car, and it knocked him sideways and has caused him to have kind of a pretty big drop in time there, as his last lap was a 1:22. So Bubicic doesn't seem to be too affected by the damage that he had taken from that strike with the Armco. He is still running about a 1:11.8 before that incident, so he might factor in before it's all said and done for this race.
GT2 leader now is in the pits. As number 40 of Oscar Salin is making his, I would have thought, one only stop when he leaves his pit box now. And checking where Bjorn Spindell is, he has already gone through, so Bjorn Spindell resumes the lead then of number 89, the blue and red car, and he heads down towards the road course. And Kenny Duval is a lap behind those two, so Salin hasn't got anything to worry about on that one. Also, I think Spanner Chen has also made his way through as well, I believe. Or maybe not, because it looks like he's had one or two problems as well. So it looks like overall, Salin is holding on to 8th overall and back down to 2nd in the GT2 class. Really are waiting now, I think, for the Oh, in fact, our race leader's in the pits. So Ronnie Fantini in the pits to make his pit stop. Number 19 has hit the stops, and that now allows Dmitry Sivkov to take the lead. And 3rd place, Jason Elrod is also in as well. So Elrod then is stopping in the number 17, Snap-on sponsored car. And as I said, Fantini leaves his box, so Fantini exits out back in what I think is going to be, I believe, 2nd place, because Elrod's stopping and Blaze hasn't yet, just coming off the road section now back onto the oval, so he's now going to effectively come back onto the lead lap, if you like, but he's obviously made his stop. So Blaze, of course, leading the championship, making his recovery after his earlier stop and his slight mistake, so he's definitely trying to safeguard his championship lead from what he has already. He makes his way through, and is now back indeed on the lead lap. So now that Fantini's stopped, so this is a good thing for him, and he can now start to chase down effectively now Jason Elrod, who I think he's actually already passed him. I think he's just passed him on track now for 3rd place. If that's the case, that's pretty decent. And of course, next target now will be Jason Elrod, and Elrod is actually Sivkov, excuse me. And Sivkov, as we say that, number 75 is in the pit. So the last of the LMPs is in for his one and only pit stop. And of course, this is going to give Fantini the lead back again, as again Fantini dips really far inside the apron, and of course he'll come back up onto the oval as he normally does, and he resumes the lead here at Texas Motor Speedway. So that lead was short-lived for Sivkov, but nonetheless it was a decent attempt at that.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how these pit stops all go down, because with about an hour and 8 minutes left here, it's going to be you're going to have to probably end up stopping again. And who can stop, or who can go longer, or who plays the strategy the best. It may end up coming down to a fuel mileage race.
It may very well indeed. It does appear that all of the cars have now started to make their way through. But hold on a second, I just had a look through here. I was looking, so I've got something in my positions. Sorry, are you about to say something, Sean? Okay, that's cool. Looking here, there seems to be that we don't have any kind of classes into kind of changing with everyone or kind of intertwined with each other. It seems to be they're all kind of separated out back into their separate classes now. And what I mean by that is that if you look at the leaderboard, all of the LMPs are now ahead of the GTs, normal GT1s are ahead of the GT2s, if that makes any sense at all. But looking at the field, I think whilst we're going through, let's have a quick rundown of the order we have as we now approach the halfway distance. And leading the race so far, although if he'll keep that lead if he eventually wins, as he's been cutting the track rather frequently, is number 19 of Ronnie Fantini as we head towards the hour mark. 2nd place, number 75 of Dmitry Sivkov, and he's holding station ahead of the number 73 of Martin Blaze, our championship leader. And in 4th place overall and in GT... Oh, hold on, Jason Elrod's gone. Jason Elrod appears to have retired from the race. Now, I'm going to look and quickly go back and see what's happened to him, if we can find him, because he's actually retired from the race, so that's rather unfortunate, and that's the reason why I just spotted it here on my screen, and he appears to have had a big off somewhere, or at least blown the engine or something. He's come down towards turn 7 on the road course, and and he's heading through, and he's pulled off. Now, he just completely pulls off the circuit. Now, whether there was a problem, or whether he had to escape somewhere, but he's just pulled the number 70 car onto the infield, and that's his day done. So we're down to 3 LMP cars left in this race, and for whatever reason, Jason Elrod is taking no further part this afternoon.
Yeah, interesting to see that he's just pulled off. Didn't look like any kind of a problem or anything, and it looks as though he's had some kind of an electrical difficulty with that car, so he is now no longer going to be taking part, and that's a real bummer for him as he now falls through the order. He's could have had a spectacular finish, honestly, given the fact that he hasn't really pushed, I guess, pace-wise here for most of this race. He was really starting to come alive there. But, yeah, you know, again, it looks like electrical problem has taken him out of contention. Meanwhile, it's all still the same with Fantini, Blaze, and Sivkov, now your LMP leaders. And the quest to have a Chevrolet Corvette win overall is, you got to think, is a little bit closer. So as we kind of try to root for the underdog here.
Well, Bubicic has got a lap to make up after his mistake earlier on, and definitely trying the best he can back in second place in the 50, but the resurgent Marco Buhin, remember, had his mistake earlier on. He's definitely having a better time than he was earlier on. He's back up to the lead in a number 30 car, and in fact, I think he's actually, looking about it, I think he's now both. I thought he was a lap ahead, but now he's now now. Looks like the leader has now put everyone 2 laps down, apart from the LMP2 cars around him. But as we were saying before, let's quickly go back to looking at it. I think the GT cars have now started. I think Marco Boone's made a pit stop somewhere, because it's showing my screen that Teo Bubicic has now retaken the GT1 lead. It's showing my screen in the 50. So whether or not the GT1 cars starting to make their pit stops, I'm not quite sure. But as we're running down before we noticed that Jason Elrod was out of the race. GT1, as they currently stand, as I see it on my screen, number 50 of Teo Bubicic has the lead for the moment in the 50 Corvette. Behind him, Marco Buin in the number 30. Third place, Eric Hafner in the number 15 Nvidia-backed Corvette, the white Corvette with the black and green highlights. And then fourth in and last in GT1 and 7th overall is the number 8 of Bogdan Spatichain. He's a lap down on the 3 GT1 cars in front of him, but still soldiering on. They're in 4th place. Then the GT2s, and it's being led by the pole man, number 89 of Bjorn Spindel. Had that mistake earlier on, but charged back up through to retake the lead. And he has a rather large gap, roughly about, I'd say, 10 seconds from the 40 of Oscar Salim. And third is Kenny Duval in the 63. I mean, a rather quiet race so far. And he's chasing down at the moment the Silas Gray in the number 32 car, which we'll get to in a second. He's about to put him a lap down. Fourth in GT2 and chasing after Duval is Jarrett Lawson in the number 26. The number 11 plain white GT of Charles Hufstetler is currently sat in 5th and at the moment 13th overall, but he'll take 12th after he goes past Jason Elrod, who has retired. And currently running last of the car still running is Silas Gray in number 32 in the white and orange sponsored car number 32. The 2 retirements we've said so far were number 70 LMP2 of Jason Elrod and the 02 of Dennis Garrison, and they round out the 15 cars which started still have 13 running, and we have passed the hour mark, so we are officially just over halfway through the race here at Texas Motor Speedway.
Yeah, it seems as though this will now be the time where we'll start to see some of these guys, maybe Blaze or Sivkov, trying to make a run at Fantini. Definitely the GT2 class, obviously with the most cars, it'll be fun to watch and see what all we can get. See if anybody's got anything for Bjorn Spindel. Again, Oscar Salin hanging in there as much as he can. But yeah, it's so far pretty spread out here at the moment. Given the few cars, it's not produced the kind of traffic jam-packed racing that we would have expected here at Texas Motor Speedway. This being, again, one of the unique stops on the summer tour for Race Department. We'd like to give a huge shout-out to all those people who are, in fact, watching the broadcast on ETV Live, also streaming out on Twitch. I think maybe even at Race Department as well. So huge thanks for listening and watching. And you can also go over and check out the chat room over at ETV Live. So if you'd like to get involved with the chat, you can go there and chat as well.
Absolutely, and also if you're watching this on the Race Department website, of course, you can get involved in the chat box down below on the broadcast, and definitely go ahead and post your thoughts and place your support whichever drivers out there you think are doing the best job. And just looking at some of the chat in there, the chat doesn't really seem to be related to the race itself. It seems to be related to more things such as the Olympics and stuff like which car was the best in 2009 in Formula 1. They're saying it was the Brawn, but not really relating to the race, but of course they're free to chat about whatever they like as the broadcast goes on in the background. But looking back at what's going on here, I'm not quite need to see what's happening with the GT1 strategies, because I think Eric Happ's had a spin somewhere. I've just seen him recovering from someone. Let me see if I can let's rewind that quickly. And has he at all, or did he move out wide? No, I think he was moving out wide, because number 15 coming down towards turn 7, braking as normal. And I think he spotted the leader, Ronnie Fantini, in his mirrors. Or no, he did. He got a huge tank slapper on the middle of turn 7 and just got it recovered. And Fantini almost lost it in sympathy behind him. But Eric Hafner then carrying on in 3rd place. He should have now allowed he just has allowed Fantini to go through. So Hafner is still struggling along in 3rd place. Then he's now a lap behind the 2 cars behind him. No, I think he's on the same lap, but he's now just been lapped by the leader. So he's 3 laps behind the leader, but he's on the same lap as the 2 cars in front of him, of Bubicic and Buhim respectively. So Hafner soldiering on after his rather decent qualifying effort. He qualified back in 3rd in class, so he's still what he qualified. 3rd in class he qualified, and he's running 3rd in class at the moment in GT1.
Yeah, Hafner there has had his as you said, has had some issues today, as all have these cars going through that middle section of the road course here at Texas Motor Speedway. Definitely is something that's a bit of a rarity for multi-class sports car racing here. It's not the first time it's ever been done, but it certainly is one of the more unique things, and we have seen a lot of problems with these cars today, trying to get the power down, as a lot of them sacrifice the downforce for that high-speed oval section, which does make up a majority of the race course here at Texas. So interesting. You're right. There is some interesting comment there in the race department chat. What do you fancy? You think the Brawn was the best car in 2009?
If we're going by what's in the chat, I think it started off the best car in the season. Of course, we had the 3 cars running the double diffuser. That was the Brawn, the Toyota, and the Williams. And obviously, the Brawn did start off as the best car, but then as they said, the teams had to put on huge packages to catch them. I do remember one occasion. I think it was what I remember hearing is that the Renault team back in Malaysia that year, they put together a brand new diffuser, brand new floor, and they actually had to ship it out. Or I say ship it out, fly it out on Flavio Briatore, of course, who was the Renault boss at the time. Had to fly it out on his private jet, and in order to fit all the parts in to fly it over all night, they had to strip out and rip out all the seats on Flavio Briatore's jet, just to fit all the parts and everything on there, just to fly it over to Malaysia. They put it on the car, spent all night working on it as soon as they got it there, and put it on the car, and I think it had some kind of effect. I can't remember exactly where the car finished that weekend, but definitely the teams putting in, starting to work on their own double diffusers. I think they now banned them, as they seem to have banned every kind of innovation they have in F1 these days. But nonetheless, the Brawn definitely. But by the time it got to the last few races, the cars such as the McLaren and the Red Bull had definitely caught up on what's going on. The Brawn was not the slowest car by any means. It was obviously a definite car that was up there, one of the fastest. But obviously, it wasn't the most dominant, as the Red Bull had got up there with the magic that was Adrian Newey. Managed to design a hell of a car, and he still does for Red Bull, and McLaren had turned their fortunes around with the package they put on from Hungary onwards. Or it was Hungary, I think it was Hungary onwards. So I think the Brawn from the outset was the best car, but I think at the end of the season I'd say, it pays me to say it because I don't really like them very much, but I have to say the Red Bull was probably the top car 2009 by the end of the season.
Nice. As we are watching here, we come back to our race here, the Race Department 2012 Summer Tour at Texas Motor Speedway. Ronnie Fantini still showing the way by 35 seconds over Martin Blaze. 3rd in class is Dmitry Sivkov. So not a whole lot, I don't want to say, going on track in terms of battles for position. So
whoa, and sorry, just you say that, I just have to quick cut in. Sorry about that, Sean, but the class leading GT1's just taken a bit of a spin, and that was Teo Bubicic up at turn 7, number 50. and I think he was getting out of the way of Martin Blaze in the 73, and just got a bit wide in the loop and put the car into a half spin. Got it back going again. There's no damage at all, but he got it going. But said nothing's going on, and all of a sudden, I think Richard must have been listening to you, because he thought, oh no, I'll take it for a spin and liven this race up a bit with other 50 odd minutes to go.
Exactly. See, that's all we got to do. If there's nothing really going on, you just ask, and you shall receive.
Absolutely. Just say to these guys, okay, do something. I want these guys to either put it into the barrier or they'll spin it somewhere. So try and liven this race up a little bit more. The fact there's only about 13 cars running, as I said earlier on at the start of the broadcast, rather disappointing. Hopefully, the next few rounds we can get some more drivers back in. I think possibly maybe some drivers didn't really fancy the idea of racing on a road course oval. But and maybe if we go on to the next round, which if I look on the calendar, if I can find it, I can see the next race for the this series is going to be, if I can scroll down. That's wrong because it's not doing it properly. So see if I can actually get it down here a bit more. Let's have a look down here. The next one's going to be, from what I can see, that's the wrong one. Apologies for this. Next one is going to be, I know it's going to be actually at Spa, the 2 hours of Spa Francorchamps. That's going to be the 25th of August in 2 weeks' time. So hopefully, Spa is a lot more popular track than Texas. So no offence to anyone who loves Texas Motor Speedway, but Spa is going to be in 2 weeks' time. Of course, it'll be another 2 hour race, and hopefully we'll see a bigger turnout than we have this evening.
Yeah, Spa certainly always brings the flocks of people out to the racetrack, regardless of where their positions in the championship standings are. As Spa, you know, it's just one of those tracks that you have to win. So much like the just much like the Indianapolises, the Daytonas, what have you, Rally Finland, you know, that's what you want to do, is go to Spa and win. So well, let's see here. Well, this Tuesday, as my cell phone alerts me to an email, this Tuesday night, you can catch me as well as my friends Mike and Doug Patterson over at ETV Live for Open Paddock Radio. So it's usually about an hour, maybe sometimes longer depending if we're drunk or not, but usually about an hour of good talk about the IZOD IndyCar series. We'll give you, obviously we'll start with your motorsports in brief, talk things Formula One, endurance racing, rally racing, and then we'll bridge into the IZOD IndyCar series and the Mazda Road to Indy. So don't forget to catch it, ETV Live, this Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, openpaddock.net live radio. So, and I think we might start trying to talk about some of these races that we cover as well, like this one here that we're covering at Texas Motor Speedway, see if we can't bridge the gap between the sim racing community as well as the actual no-kidding racing community as well. So, it shall be interesting.
Well, obviously sim racing and sims like iRacing definitely a lot of real-world drivers use it, such as Justin Wilson, AJ Allmendinger, Dale Earnhardt Jr. does as well. Of course, Scott Speed apparently hosts just random lobbies and just invites people to race against him, race his fans. So it's definitely an ideal training tool, iRacing. It's definitely something which both the real-life racers use, and it gives. I think it's great that it gives even the average kind of person like myself or like yourself, Sean, or just anyone kind of who is a racing fan and just wants to give it a go. It gives them an insight, just essentially, you know, how a race car feels and how it feels to kind of go through a whole race weekend, how to set up a car and how to race with other people out on track, and it's pretty decent. And I was actually saying about this in a podcast I did actually recorded yesterday. It's a shame that the racing game community and the sim racing community as a whole doesn't get a bigger press than communities such as things like, you know, the FIFA football franchise or Call of Duty, that kind of thing, because it's a shame because if you see on YouTube and places like Twitch and that kind of thing, you see the communities, some of the directors, and don't get me wrong, they do a fantastic job, but you know, in some cases, you know, they're only focusing really on one game as such. Whereas if you look at the sim racing community and the racing game community as a whole, you've got so many titles and so many different kind of developed games out there to cover it. It's fantastic. You've got a huge variety to go through, and you know, it's a bit of a shame that no one else is out there and doing the same kind of thing that the FIFA directors or the COD directors are doing. And just having a kind of channel that brings together both the racing gamers and the sim racers into one thing. So I think really more needs to be done in terms of to a bit more of a mass audience rather than concentrating on just a certain group.
All right. Well, we're just getting word actually that thing that happened with Jason Elrod that we were talking about, as he is one of only 2 of our cars that have retired. It looks as though Elrod had a video card issue there, and it looks like we've just had an accident on track. Jarrett Lawson The number 26 GT
Oh.
car that was running P4 at the time just had massive impact with the wall, and now, just as we say it, he becomes the third car to retire from the race after that huge hit. But again, Jason Elrod has went out because his video card crashed.
Looking back on the replay, it looks like he got wide going onto the pit straight, and then just lost the car, slammed the inside wall, and just couldn't really control the car, and then nerfed the outside wall, and the car was parked on the outside of turn 1. So it's rather unfortunate for Jarrett Lawson. But just going back to the point I was making about the coverage of sim racing, I think that if there was any kind of directors that did the same thing as the FIFA community, the Call of Duty communities did, but for sim racing, I think it'd be fantastic, because I wouldn't say that they'd get on the same level, but it definitely would make people a lot more aware of the communities that are out there, because I think if you get the series out there, there's a lot of fantastic racing leagues that get broadcast either here on ETV or on other places like simrace.tv, multi-BC, those kind of like broadcast channels and broadcast sites, and just a lot of people don't see them. And I think that there should be more kind of like creative YouTube commentators out there that should cover sim racing. I think that's definitely a market that hasn't really been explored to its full potential, I don't think.
I agree 100%. I oftentimes always thought, when I first started iRacing and didn't even know about race broadcasting, I thought that would be a great idea, honestly, to have out there. And you look at it now, and I mean, there's a few broadcast companies that do some things. ETV Live, I think, has done probably the best job of those that I've seen, showing the races, the quality of commentary when I'm not here, of course. No, but yeah, it's really interesting. It's really amazing. You look at like the StarCraft 2s and stuff like that. They get all the press, and people go out there and try to win those national level tournaments and everything. And I think that sim racing can really do the same kinds of things. Going forward, as I think it's still young, with iRacing really just now kind of catching on as being one of the big things, and all these professional drivers out there doing the sim racing in the off time, using it as a training tool, like you said. It's great, and it's not tapped yet. And I think that the future for sim racing and sim racers, Joe Schmoes like me who don't have millions of dollars in sports car equipment, one day, perhaps we'll have that kind of a following, that cult following, if you will, like we see with StarCraft or Call of Duty or or anything like that. So that's very valid points, honestly.
I'd just like to just notice we've had a spin for the 63 of Kenny Develop at turn 7. Just seemed just to outbrake himself and just lost the rear end, just spun it onto the grass. No damage done at all, but he's managed to get that car going again. Still running third in class, and going again, so he's definitely back on his way. But one of the point I was going to make, and I made this point in the podcast as well, was that if you look at, say, for example, the FIFA community, you play a game of like FIFA football. So one of the top footballers in the world, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the top footballers in the world, or soccer players in the world. You could play with him on the game, but you can't then go ahead and start doing step-overs and fancy tricks like he does in real life. And the same thing I have to say with Call of Duty, or Battlefield for that matter, or any kind of shoot 'em up like that, is that you can't just play around 17 deathmatch or something on Call of Duty and then go out and then just shoot a gun for real life and expect it to be a fantastic shot. But the great thing about sim racing is that you can race somewhere like Texas Motor Speedway, or somewhere like a circuit in Europe, like Spa, for example, or maybe a circuit in somewhere like Silverstone or Brands Hatch, or one of the road courses in America. And then you can go ahead and take your real car, and you can translate whatever skills you've learned by learning the track and learning the corners. You can translate that into real-world driving. And I think if more people were made aware of that, and more people kind of appreciated that a bit more, and I think the thing also that's also what's missing, that there are all these tournaments that are going on. I think there's actually one going on over in Europe, I think, for stuff like you said, like StarCraft, and also things like the shoot-em-ups like that, and also FIFA. There's a FIFA tournament going on as well. I know that, but there's no tournaments going on for sim racing like this. I think maybe some people say that maybe because it's all online and based, that will go ahead and they'll do it online, and that's the case. But I think in some cases it'll be good to have things like that, because it allows not only for there to be a mass events and to give sim racing a better press, but it allows the sim racing community to kind of meet up with each other and kind of like to, so if you've been racing with a certain person online and you agree to go up to the meetup, you can put a face to a name. You can kind of have a chat, and you can build that friendship up, and you can kind of just bring the community a bit more closer. I think that's, as you said, the sim racing community, I think, it's taking bigger and bigger strides every year. I think in some cases it's still a little bit young in terms of things like iRacing and other sims like R-Factor for that case, and other ones that are coming through like Assetto Corsa is looking fantastic, Project Cast developing as well, and in terms of stuff on the console like Forza, Gran Turismo, also Need for Speed is in some cases is okay. Things like the F1 series is coming through. We've got the new Grid 2's been announced as well. So there's definitely scope there for these communities to expand and these tournaments to go ahead and to happen. I think there just needs to be, some people just need to be able to go out there and just start that movement forward and trying to build up its popularity. I mean, I'm not sure how you feel about that, if you share the same views on that point, Sean, but I think definitely sim racing needs to have a bigger popularity and a bigger press than it already has compared to some of the bigger car directors out there on YouTube and indeed on Twitch.
Yeah, and one of the things is, you know, when you play Ronaldo in the FIFA football, for example, you get to see him play the game. It's not a simulator where you're out there actually, you know, running with him. Whereas on iRacing, R-Factor, you get those professionals out there. You're actually seeing them translate their craft, if you will, what they do to make a living. You see them translate it in this sim. And I mean, you're truly racing against their abilities, you know, albeit you're not obviously taking the G-force or really hitting anything if you do, but I mean you're actually seeing them apply their craft, and you can't do that on any other game or sim or anything like that in the world. And I think that's one of the true things about it. And actually, if you look at somebody like Martin Plowman, who here in the United States drives with the Conquest Endurance team, I actually met him playing. I originally introduced myself to him racing with him and Justin Wilson on the iRacing service, and now every time I go to an IndyCar race to do the coverage for Open Paddock, I meet up with him and I shake his hand and we talk for a few minutes. All of that was fostered by the iRacing community, and you cannot do that anywhere else in the world.
Absolutely, that does actually sound really fantastic. That's pretty great. You get the access for that one. That's pretty cool. As we've been saying, that we've got a couple of cars hitting the stops. We've got number 50 Ted Bubicic has hit the stops in the 50 Corvette, and also we've got the number 26 of I don't know why, number 26 of Jarrett Lawson. It's still in the pit lane. I know he's retired, but he's still in the pit lane, and the car hasn't been moved. So whether or not he's just spectating from the pits, I'm not quite sure. But nevertheless, we've had the pit stop for Bubicic. He has left the pits now. He's still in second place then. And Marco Buin then is, I'd say, roughly about 2/3 of a lap ahead. So, of course, I think probably some of these cars will be looking to make another stop. It looks like the GT1, GT2 cars obviously have a smaller tank compared to the LMPs running at the moment. But, yeah, it's different looking as though that the field's still getting a lot more spread out. And there's only, apart from the three LMPs, every car has been lapped. I can see that's running on track at least 3 times. So there's every car that's still running is at least 3 laps down, apart from, of course, the 3 LMPs, and the gap between them, first to third, the spread is 48.4 seconds. So it does seem to be that there seems to be Fantini in a class of his own, but of course, as we've said, we're not quite sure how that leads, if that race win's going to stand, because he's all race been cutting below the apron, putting all 4 wheels way below the apron, and we could be seeing that if he gets disqualified from the results, only literally 2 LMP cars on the podium we could be seeing.
It looks like a Hafner here has moved around Teo Bubicic as they cross the line, so that for second in GT1 class, Hafner now move him, number 15, ahead of the number 50 of Teo Bubicic as they wind down here. We've got about 42 minutes left, just over 42 minutes left in this race, so we're going to start to see people pushing, but I'm afraid that Martin Blaze is not going to be able to actually catch Fantini on track, and if he's going to make the pass for the lead, that it is going to come in the steward's office here before we end the day today. So it will be interesting to see, maybe get some clarification from the people at Race Department as to what will happen with that. But yeah, you're right, is Fantini leading the number 19 LMP2, the HPD, over Martin Blaze, your championship leader. Third place, the number 75, Dmitry Sivkov. Going back to GT1, we've got Marco Buin, who's still putting together a great run. And now Teo Bubicic gets back around Hafner for second place as these two begin to switch and swap positions. So now move Bubicic back ahead of Hafner, who had trouble putting the power down in response to Bubicic's move. And then Spadashian is in 7th place overall, 4th in the GT1s. Moving into GT2, it's of course Bjorn Spindle, the man, the myth, the legend, who has recovered from early race issues to lead that GT2 class over Oscar Salin, that followed on the GT2 podium is Kenny Duval. So that is your podium positions at the moment. Only 3 cars retired. We have Jarrett Lawson, the number 26, which we've seen that Ford GT have solid impact with the wall. Also, Jason Elrod, who lost his video card connection, he is the only LMP out, and then Dennis Garrison, for whatever reason, also had issues, and he was actually the first of the retirements. So that is the run through the field at this moment, and I guess we will go ahead and go to one last commercial break before we take you through to the end of this, the 2 hours at Texas for the Race Department Summer Tour.
Hey, JD here with ETV Live, and let me tell you something. If it's too big for the pickup truck and you need to move it, there's only one trucking company you need to call, and don't bother with the Yellow Pages Cowboy. I'll give you that number in a minute. Manufactured goods, automotive, technical equipment, furniture, even if you need a reefer, Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated is the only choice, Cowboy. With locations in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, Rancho Cucamonga, California, if you need to move it, store it, and keep it cold, you need to call Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated. Long haul, short haul, or just across town, Gary Mercer has the best trained and qualified drivers to get your load from point A to point B with professionalism and on time. So remember, Hoss, if it don't fit in a pickup truck, you're going to need a real truck, Cowboy. Sponsors of ETV Live's Friday Night Showdown, Gary Mercer Trucking Incorporated, 1-800-668-2980.
We're back.
All right, well, welcome back here to Texas Motor Speedway as we now watch this, the Summer Tour, the Race Department sponsored Summer Tour Le Mans 2012. As we left, we had Ronnie Fantini leaving and Martin Blaze second and Dmitry Sivkov third. That order is the same. However, we still have Teo Bubicic and Eric Hafner doing battle for that second position in GT1. So that is probably the most lively of the battles, as Marco Buin, he currently leads that. That fight by quite a hefty margin. Honestly, he's well onto the oval track as both Hafner and Bubicic now work through the last section of the road course. Bjorn Spindle now up to 7th place overall in that Ford GT as he leads the GT2 class over Oscar Salen and Kenny Duval. So it's kind of spread out a little bit here, Scott, with 37 minutes left.
It is indeed. Just quickly as we're saying that, we have got a LMP2 car in the pits. It's number 73 of Martin Blaze, who's making another stop. He feels that it's too short field to try and get out in front. And I think this will give, I think it already has given Sivkov second place for the moment. Whether or not Ronnie Fantini, who's currently just going around the second placed Corvette of Bubicic, number 50, whether or not Fantini wanting another stop remains to be seen, but of course he still has the possibility of a disqualification hanging over him. I'm sure. I probably bet that he'd probably argue the case that he was unaware of the fact that that rule was there. But in all cases, the fact of the matter is, if he hasn't read the rule book eventually and didn't know that, essentially, in fact, that's his fault and not the race organisers. I mean, really, it's his responsibility to know the rules, and if he's not adhering to them, he has to face the consequences.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, you never want to get into a championship and not actually read the rules. Obviously, if you can fancy that some of the Formula One teams might not do that on occasion, but definitely here on the Race Department Summer Tour, it is important to read those rules because honestly, we talked all weekend as we see, there's Fantini going down again onto the apron, but as you look. And honestly, this is going to be devastating for Fantini because he had a real good chance to make up quality points going forward from here. And honestly, those points aren't gonna materialize at the end of the race. I just cannot see how, with the rules stating what they are, that he be allowed to keep the win or the points. Because even if you assess him, I mean, what are you going to assess him? 20-second penalties for each infraction. He's going to lose the race. And probably finish below the people who actually retired, because I mean he's been doing it every single lap, and nobody, in my mind anyways, has said anything to him about it. So it remains to be seen what the stewards will do about that. But you've got to think that it's absolutely going to be undone for Fantini, and that massive lead that he has is going to all evaporate, and he's going to lose the points as well, which is sad because I don't think. Given Fantini's pace, he didn't need to do that.
No, absolutely not. He's sorry to cut you off there, I'm sure, but I'll say no, absolutely not. I mean, he took pole position by a decent margin. He was extremely quick in practice as well. So, I mean, he could have had this lead, or probably not as big, but he could have had his easy enough lead by not having to do that. In fact, no one else. If I look at, say, for example, Civikov or Blaze going through that same section, I'm going to watch Martin Blaze go through here, and not once have I seen him do exactly what Fantini's done. He's getting very close to the inside of the track, but he's keeping all four wheels on the right side of it, shall we say. But and he's doing absolutely fine. So I think that Fantini really, as I completely agree with you there, Sean, he has had no need at all to do what he's been doing lap after lap. I think effectively the only person who's got to blame, should the race stewards decide to impose these penalties and even just go ahead and disqualify him, it's himself, because he's the one that's been doing it. And even what's going to make it worse, if he knew what the rules were, just going to show complete disregard for them, because if he did know what the rules were, well, that just makes it even worse.
Yeah, true indeed. Well, let's take a look back into GT1. We'll start with GT1. Only 4 cars in the GT1 field today. It's a little bit of a empty field, as we mentioned at the start of the broadcast. Only 16 cars registered, and it looked like only 15 of them taking laps. Marco Buin in the number 30 Lotus inspired livery there, leading over Tio Bubicic, who has had an incident, a couple incidents today rather, on the infield part of that racetrack. Eric Hafner's third, 6th overall. He as well has had his issues in the road course portion. As we see at the beginning of the race, a lot of the GT cars having issues getting the power down and keeping the car really under braking. A lot of cars would slide off into the tire barrier. Bringing up the end of that GT1 field is Bogdan Spadachean, sorry. He is 4th, but 9th overall, so he's got both Bjorn Spindel and Oscar Salen ahead of him for the overall. So, and speaking to the GT2 guys, it's been a relatively quiet day. Now, obviously, we had Jarrett Lawson with a big impact, and Dennis Garrison also had retired, but we had 8 of those GT cars in the race, and it seems as though even with Bjorn Spindel's early off-track explorations, turning his Ford GT into more of a Ford Fiesta rally car, honestly, he's made up that time nicely, and there's not been much of too many issues really between himself or Salem. They had that nice battle for the lead on track, and then Kenny Duval looks like he's just overtaken by Charles Hufsetler somewhere on track as well. So good racing throughout the field though, and definitely not as many incidents as what we had seen last time at Watkins Glen, where we had a lot of cars taking unnecessary risks. It seems as though this time everybody has a lot more respect for each other and just wants to get through the race, as they know this is a bit of a unique stop on the race department calendar. As you said, next event that we have to look forward to will be at Spa-Francorchamps. So yep, get this one in the books, and it looks like it's all to, well, not really all still to play for with half an hour left, but it is certainly spread out a bit. But the leader is putting on great shows all the way across now. I guess we got 2 cars left on the lead lap, that being Fantini and Sivkov.
Absolutely correct. I think whilst she's talking, we've had another retirement come through. I think it's the 32 of Silas Grainer is out of the race. Didn't quite catch what happened, but he's watched out the race. And as we say that, our race leader is heading to the pits for the second time. So we've got Ronnie Fantini is in for a second stop with about, I think, less than half an hour to go. We're inside the last half hour at Texas Motor Speedway. The number 19 of Fantini heads down the road and stops in his box. So he's not quite sure where he's going to stop there. He went right across the pit wall, has gone back out, and now he's going to go ahead and stops on his marks. And this.
Yeah, looks very much all routine thus far for Fantini for sure.
Absolutely, and let's see if Sivkov dips down onto the apron. Answer to that is no, and he carries on, and Fantini hasn't left his box yet, so at the moment Sivkov then, for the moment, takes the lead, and that is a slight lead change, shall we say. And as he goes through turns 1 and 2, Fantini leaves the pits, so I'm assuming that Sivkov has to stop again, so these going to be short-lived at the moment.
Yeah, it seemed to be a bit of a long stop there for Fantini. You'd think with only about half hour left there wouldn't be as much to do with the car. But again, you know, he's well in command. If Sivkov stops again, which undoubtedly he would have to, you would think. I mean, I don't think I've seen him stop any other time. But yeah, this is a little bit of a longer stop than what I expected for Fantini there. So.
And with this, I'm pretty sure, as I said, that Sivkov will have to make another stop. We'll have to keep an eye on his exploits now up at the front, as he is now temporarily leading in the number 75, the Nvidia backed car, as he heads round onto the road, onto the oval once again, out of the road course through turn 8 onto the what is turns 3 and 4 on the oval, but on this course it's turns 9 and 10. And does he dip down this time? He's getting very close to the inside one. Does he dip down? No, he doesn't. He carries on. So maybe he's possibly trying to extend whatever advantage he has a bit longer. But I think obviously it's going to be short-lived, because as soon as he pits Fantini, there's only about, say, a few seconds. He's only literally a handful of seconds behind him, and that advantage is not going to last. In fact, it's 5.7 as they go across the stripe to start. I think it's lap 78 they're on now. So definitely he's trying hard. Back to GT1, still got Marco Buin leading by a lap from Ted Bubicic, and then Eric, or even, I presume it's a lap, because I think Ronnie Fantini's probably still got to lap Buhin, but still. Buin leads from Bubicic, and Hafner, Spadachain in that class is back, as we said, back down in 9th, and he is, I'd say, 2 laps down on the next car behind, on next GT car in front of Eric Hafner. And GT2, still that battle going on between Spindel and Salin. And Hofstetler is a lap behind those guys. In fact, I think Salin is literally just behind him, come up to lap him. So, but still, Charles Hofstetler is doing extremely well to keep the car in 3rd place. That car is all white, doesn't have, as far as I can see on my screen, doesn't have any sponsors, but doing well in 3rd place. And of course, then Kane Duval and the white car with the red and blue highlights on the sides. And of course, 11 cars left of the 15 that started. So, a pretty thinning outfield here at Texas Motor Speedway as we come into the last. We're inside now the last 25 minutes of this round of the Race Department Le Mans Series Summer Tour. So, I think, as I said, again, a bit disappointed we didn't bring a turn up. I think maybe because we didn't have very many, maybe because not many people fancied running on a course like this. But I'm hoping, and I reckon that next round at Spa-Francorchamps, we'll have a much bigger turnout, because I think that's a circuit which everyone loves to run at.
Oh yeah, you love to run it. You love to win there, as all the greats have throughout all of time. You've had, what, Schumacher, you've had Senna. I mean, you know, you've got so many people who's won out there, and even in the sports car field, I mean, anybody who's anybody in sports cars or manufacturer-wise has run at Spa and won on a regular basis. truly one of those unique tracks that is actually a treat to drive and not so much a chore. The kind of thing that you'd have to think that maybe this Roval setup here at Texas is a bit of a chore. No offense, like you said, to the Texas fans, but it is a little bit, you know, you have to find that compromise between downforce and going flat out and still being able to make those hairpin corners we have here. Spa, on the other hand, natural terrain road course, flowing. You know, you got places like, I mean, any place that's got a course that's, you know, has every corner named like that is a big deal, and just the history that it holds there. So definitely look forward to seeing Spa, as I always do. So look forward to that. Right now, still really nothing going between the leaders. Dmitry Sivkov has got about a 5.8 second lead over Ronnie Fantini. We're pretty sure that Sivkov has to stop again, almost certain that Sivkov has to stop again. If that is the case, that will give Fantini the lead back. And Martin Blaze is now 41 seconds back from the lead as well. So, and on the lead lap, might I add. So, but he as well will probably have to stop again. So good stuff here at Texas, but you're right, the field is a bit thin. The action is a little uneventful as we see our leader, or our soon-to-be leader, number 19, Ronnie Fantini, going to the outside of that car, that GT car there. So good stuff out of Ronnie. He's drove a solid race all day, all penalty infractions aside, but he's drove a smart race. He took off right out of the gate. He was gone as soon as the green flag came out, and he hasn't looked back since then. So good stuff from him.
Absolutely. Just take a quick look at the calendar. Of course, after Spa, we've got one more race, I believe, on the calendar, which is going to be the 2 hours of Motegi. And what I can see on the calendar, that is going to take place on the 8th of September. So that's obviously about, I'd say, roughly another 4 weeks' time or so. So still 2 more races in the season, and I think definitely if there's anyone with the likes of Martin Blaze, of course, and Fantini and stuff, and Sivkov to try and push their way up to the top of the field. Definitely races like Texas and then moving into Spa, definitely going to have to make mostly 2 races as they already are at the moment. And definitely it'll be interesting to see just how much of a turnout we get at Spa, and 2, how much effect it has on the championship.
Well, that's a very good point that you bring up, because when you run into races like that, where you're running a place like Spa, or if you take like the IndyCar Championship and you're running in Indianapolis, for example, and you know, those kinds of tracks bring out more drivers because they want to be challenged, they want to win there. A lot of these iRacing guys drive Spa a lot in hosted events, whether it be in the Formula One cars or the Indy cars or the sports cars that we have here. So yeah, there's going to be, you know, you can almost guarantee that there's going to be a better turnout there, and as well the potential for some championship points to be upset, because you'll have people who will either finish and take those championship points, or you'll have people who will just show up and not perform as well as they were hoping, and potentially collect some of our championship leaders in some of their accidents. So yeah, certainly will be kind of a wild card race, as it were, at Spa. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same at Motegi, but for sure Spa will pose that unique challenge to these drivers. Not that they don't already have a unique challenge with that road course, but it will be, you know, it will be interesting to say the least.
So inside the last 20 minutes then here at Texas Motor Speedway for this round of the 2012 Race Department's Le Mans Series Summer Tour here at Texas Motor Speedway with the road course. And I suppose we can try another run down the order. Nothing actually really changed, but as we can see at the moment, currently at the moment is Dmitry Sivkov leading in the number 75 car, still about 4.6 seconds ahead of Ronnie Fantini in second, but we're pretty sure that Sivkov has to make another stop, another trip into pit lane. Third place is Martin Blaze in car number 73. He's 42 seconds back on the leader. And those are the only 3 cars that are left running LMP2. The other car, which was running Jason Elrod, retired some 38 laps ago. And then back into GT1, and it's number 30, the Marco Buin car, the Lotus Tribute car, in the black and gold, number 30. And he is ahead of Teo Bubicic in number 50. And then Eric Hafner in NVIDIA back number 15 is currently running in 3rd overall. And then in 4th in GT1 and back in 9th overall, 3 places back on Hafner is Bogdan Spatchain in the number 8 car. Then look at GT2 in number 89 of Bjorn Spindell in the 89, ahead of Oscar Salin in number 40. These are the 4 GTs. In third place in GT2 is car 11, Charles Hufstetler, the all-white machine. In fourth is Kenny Duval in the number 63 car, and then the 3 cars which retired from GT2 are Silas Granite in the 32, Jarrett Lawson in the 26, and Dennis Garrison, who retired 73 laps ago in the 02.
Yeah, so yeah, it's quite a thin, like you said, quite thin. But we have had some incidents on track. The track has posed numerous challenges to the drivers. One of the things that we talked about in the pre-race show was the ability for the Chevrolet Corvettes and the 4 GTs to get the power down to those rear wheels through these hairpin sections. The Texas Motor Speedway, not really a huge road racing section in the middle that makes up the road course, but it does have a lot of 180 hairpin-like corners that has been real interesting. As we said, we had to sacrifice the downforce. And we nearly had an incident there actually with our soon-to-be overall leader. Ronnie Fantini was running on the oval section and just about had some trouble with one of the 4 GTs. A big bobble and then a dive to the inside. So looked like it was just about ended there. Good job for Fantini getting that car back under control. But again, you know that when you compromise the downforce for the oval speed, I mean, it's created some interesting twitchy movements out of these cars as they twitch and try to gain that grip with those large tires. And here in the later stages of the race, it looks like everybody has finally kind of figured it out and cooled down a little bit. But I bet you a lot of these drivers are probably saying, man, I wish we could restart this thing and run it all over again.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely would be something that they'd be definitely looking to do if they could try and start it all over again. Obviously, if they could try and start this whole event over again, they'd probably wait until they got more people in the server. But nonetheless, obviously we've got what we have at the moment, which is of course the 11 cars we still have running. With some, I think we're coming up to the last 15 minutes. This is, of course, this is crunch time for what exactly is going to happen. And we still think that Dmitry Sivkov, who I'm currently looking at on board, has a 7.3 second gap to Fantini back in second. We still think he's got another stop to make, but if he hasn't, then he's either played the fuel-saving game and played his strategy really well, or he's taking a risk and he thinks that he can get away with it and try and run to the end. But he may find himself in difficulty should he start running out of fuel.
Yeah, very true, and it's not unusual in these Le Mans races to see some of these guys like Sivkov take this chance and absolutely push as far as he can into the fuel window and try to, you know, take the race that way on pit strategy alone. It will be interesting. I thought that he had to stop again, but you know, he may be rolling the dice. Maybe he figured that, you know, the pace that he had been running is conducive enough for him to save a little bit of fuel, albeit a place like Texas is going to be really difficult to save fuel because of the fact that you're wide open on the throttle just about the whole entire way around, except for that very brief section in the middle of the circuit where the road course actually lies. So it's certainly will be a huge gamble for Sivkov, but if he makes it work, you know, that would be huge. That would just absolutely be huge, because he's bouncing right around the 7 seconds. It was about 7 seconds last lap. He's right at about 6.5 seconds now over Ronnie Fantini, who's led pretty much the whole entire thing. So it will be interesting to see where he ends up, if in fact he ends up pushing as far as he can here with just about 17.5 minutes left in this race. So
definitely, I'm not sure if I'm slightly ahead of you, but I've got my time lapse says we're inside 15 minutes as far as I can see on my screen. But
yeah, unfortunately it counts unfortunately on the iRacing it counts like the pace lap and all that. So it's a bit of a skewed number. So I have to actually rely on the broadcast team. John, we have working the cameras. JD, our engineer, got to count on them to keep that counter up there. But yeah, we are at just about 17 minutes left in this race that Sivkov now leads over Fantini, 6.8 seconds. Marco Buin still holding down GT1, and Bjorn Spindle holding down the overall lead or not the overall lead, I'm sorry, the GT2 lead. Used to Bjorn leading overall in the S-Course Le Mans Championship, but he's went to the GT2s for this particular summer tour. Stick around after the race, as we should have all 3 of our class winners here for a press conference style segment at the end of the race, whether that be Sivkov or Fantini or even Blaze is still to be seen, but we should have Buin and Spindell in there, provided they can hang on here with about 16.5 minutes to go. So
if Fantini ends up winning this and he gets into the broadcast booth with this, it's going to be pretty interesting what he responds to. In fact, I think it looks like it's going to be the case, as actually just as I say that, Sivkov dives into the pits to make his last stop, so we were right. Sivkov did have to make one more stop, and that will give the lead then back to Ronnie Fantini as he goes through on the pit straight. So it looks like Fantini is going to win it, and if that's the case, we're going to have to ask him the question. We're going to have to bring up the topic of him going below the white, all 4 wheels of the white line, and yeah. I think everyone's going to be very interested to hear his answer and his reasons to why he's been doing what he's been doing. But until then, he's going to have to carry on and see what he can do.
yes, indeed. It will be interesting to hear his responses. What white line? I don't need no stinking white line. So it will be. But we'll see what happens with him after the race, if he even makes it to the booth. Depending, I don't know if there's a race director actually here who will be able to on that before we actually get to the press conference, but it looks like it will be Fantini that we will be speaking with, provided he is able to hang on and not make any kind of errors. I mean, there's still 15 minutes left in this race, so anything can happen, honestly. But you got to think he's been driving solid all day, putting together solid lap times. Unfortunately, it would appear as though he has not been able to adhere to the rules as we see him go through there, and we got here Teo Bubicic overtaking some GT cars through the road section. That number 50 Chevrolet Corvette has seen its fair share of drama today, as has the 15 of Eric Hafner, but those 2 run behind Marco Buin. But Bubicic, really impressive thing about Bubicic is he took probably a harder hit than what Hafner did. Hafner put it in the tires pretty early on, and it looked like that was only a cosmetic damage. Bubicic, on the other hand, had a pretty solid contact with the wall. Actually had to make a pretty prolonged pit stop to fix that damage, and he is right back out there and running good lap times compared to the leaders. So interesting stuff from there. I don't know if that crash just looked worse than what it was, but it looked pretty bad to me. I mean, it looked like it crunched the front of that Corvette up pretty good.
It's very interesting. I think maybe that when he went into the pits, they were actually able to really repair the damage, and from there, Bubicic just had a lot more speed, and his car's been running a lot better in terms of setup-wise, in terms of compared to Hafner's. Just the point I want to raise the setup is that, of course, the setup will be slightly unique, obviously, here at the Texas Motor Speedway. The main fact, because of course they've got to run on 2 sections of banked oval, and of course, usually if you watch, say, IndyCar or NASCAR or any series that runs on an oval, you'll know that essentially the car is set up in order to essentially kind of cater to having all 4 wheels kind of essentially flat when they go through the oval, so it helps with tyre wear. Because of course in oval racing, you know, effectively you probably heard it time and time again if you watch it, tyres is what wins a race. And obviously with these cars, they won't obviously be set up in the same way. I mean, it's just a plain example. If you watch like a NASCAR Sprint Cup car or a Nationwide car, you can plainly see it. It looks as though how the car's set up. And I was watching actually the highlights from Pocono over here in England. We have Sky Sports and they show the highlights for the NASCAR series, for NASCAR Sprint Cup series. And it demonstrates, if you look at it from them coming like face on towards the camera, it looks like the cars are crabbing. It looks like the cars the front of the car's already pointing towards the corner, but the car's kind of crabbing down the straight. But in fact, that's just how the car's set up. So it's more primed to turn left, because essentially that's all they really need to do, apart from if they go on a road course, for example, like Watkins Glen, or like Infineon in Sonoma, or if it's a Nationwide car, places like Montreal and Road America, places like that. But obviously, with these kind of cars, obviously there's going to be a lot more wear on the outside tyres, which would be the right-hand side tyres, because of course, not only have they got the road sections to do, which is turning left and right, they're going to go through essentially for 2 hours worth of driving on a circuit, as I said, which is two parts of it, is banked oval. So there's going to be a lot more strain on the right-hand side of the car in that respect.
Indeed, always very tricky to get the setup just right, but you're right, these cars much different than what we see with like the American open wheel cars or even the NASCARs, as you said, that appear to be almost crabbing when they go down the straightaway because of the extreme settings on those cars. Not the case here for the Le Mans cars. These LMP2s, the HPD ARX is you know, set up for it obviously, but not to that degree. And it will be interesting to see. So as we now get down to just about 11 minutes left here in this race, Fantini still leading Sivkov and Blaze, and so no real change in any other running order for that matter, as these guys kind of circulate around. We thought that maybe we would have seen a little bit of a push by some of these guys there towards the end, but I honestly just don't think they were close enough at the end of the day to make those moves.
No, it does seem to me that in terms of overall pace, regardless of whether he's been breaking the rules or not, Fantini has been the one that's had the ultimate pace overall, and no one's really been able to touch him apart from the fact that in the pit stops, obviously, really, this is in some cases been a lights to flag victory really for Fantini, unless something dramatic happens on the last few minutes. And just looking at his, as far as I can see on my screen, he now comes through onto turns 3 and 4, and again cuts down the inside of that the apron, as he has done pretty much all race, and he was doing it in qualifying and in practice, I believe, as well. So he's been doing it pretty much all the time he's been on track here at Texas, and I think I have to say you'd have to call him pretty ignorant if he hasn't even been able to go ahead and read the rules and take in the fact that you cannot do that without incurring a penalty. So, as you said earlier on, either he was going to have stacked up at a monumental amount of penalties, or the race organisers may just take the simpler option and just basically exclude him from the results. Or if you're a race director, I think you'd probably take the simpler option, because you wouldn't want to go ahead and calculate exactly how much of a penalty he's going to be applied to him.
Well, yeah,
it would be simple logic the fact that it'd be so many that the best thing to do is essentially you wouldn't get him any lower than really the back of the field, of course. So essentially, really, the smart choice, really, I suppose, would be to just exclude him straight away. But of course, we've still got a few minutes to go in this race, so anything can really happen.
Indeed, we went underneath the 10-minute mark, and it looked like there was a trouble there on the broadcast feed for our GT1 leader there. I'm going to go back and actually take a look at that real quick, because I'm not so certain that something didn't happen to Marco Buin, or he didn't put some wheels off a bit wrong there. So
I'm just going to rewind myself so if I can find anything.
Looks as though maybe he just ran wide. There was another Corvette. Looks like Hafner's Corvette. He ran wide and actually got up onto a little bit of a I don't know exactly what that is, concrete or dirt there, and made the rear wheels hop a little bit.
Also, just to take note, that a couple laps ago he did make his final pit stop as well in the number 30 car. So he has made it. Maybe the fact that could be a contributing factor. Maybe just come out on cold tyres and possibly just go. I think it was a bit optimistic. I think into turn 8 was where he kind of went a bit too wide. But maybe he just is trying to get the his fresh tyres, or maybe he thought if he just decided to take on fuel. It was a fairly short stop. I think he may have been taking on just fuel. But maybe even if that's the case, maybe the tyres have just been a little bit overworn, or from that back. But nonetheless, it's still looking pretty decent, and we're still moving towards the last few minutes of the race as we move into almost the last 5 minutes of the race. Then, so just starting to wind down. I think everyone's just going to has been in probably just safety get your home mode, just for the last few tracks of this race. And like I said, Fantini's going to win it on track, it looks like, unless he has a major accident or something happens. Not to do want to put a commentator's curse on it, of course, but still, it looks as though that he's been today the master of this 2.28 mile circuit. But whether he'll hold on to the on-track victory remains to be seen. I'm pretty sure that he's going to be called up to the steward's office as soon as he gets out of the car. But at the moment, he is your on-track leader.
Yeah, as he now works his way through the lead GT1 traffic, as he's now approaching the rear end of Marco Buin's car. He really has been the class of the field. And again, if you take away from the exclusion that may happen, or the fact that he has been cutting the oval, I mean, his pace has really been just that good. I mean, Sivkov and Blaze have not been able to mount a challenge on him. The only time he's led, not had to lead this race, is during pit stops, but he's done a masterful job, albeit from the interesting stuff that we will look forward to hearing about after the race. So yeah, it's been, as you see now, he's got, for once there, he had all the tires above the white line. I mean, hell, the race ain't over yet, and I guess now's as good a time as any to maybe see if the stewards will take pity on his soul, but I don't think that's going to be the case, as he still has about an hour and 55 minutes of where he's been doing it all the wrong way. So I wouldn't expect it to change, honestly, as he now makes his way around Boohan's car. Boohan with a nice performance today. Really, again, this week the story has been which Corvette could not have the biggest problems, and Boohan was the one. At Watkins Glen, it was Hafner that took the race win because he was able to stay out of trouble and not be collected, but this race himself and Teo Bubicic have had some issues on track in this road section, and it's been Marco Boohan who had a bit of an issue himself, but he was able to come back from it, so pretty much equal incidents all throughout the GT1 field. And then obviously GT2, Bjorn Spendel, I mean, criminy, what this guy, I don't know what this guy can't do. Anytime I've ever seen Bjorn Spendel race, he has won, so he does not lose races, and this will actually be 3 of 3 events for him, as he did take the opening round at Sebring that was not covered here on ETV Live. He took that one and then finished up by taking Watkins Glen as well, and he's well on his way with about 5.5 minutes left here of taking the Texas Motor Speedway as well.
He is indeed. He's got a nice comfortable lead on Oscar Salin behind him, and I did think it was quite funny the fact that it's only an hour and 55 minutes into the race that Ronnie Fanti then decided to start obeying the rule book, which is rather funny. I think maybe he did that probably just to try and I think he was following one of the GT cars, and maybe he's kind of realised, oh, criminy, I should actually keep myself above the white line, but really it's too little too late for him. So I think really, unless the stewards, I'm pretty sure even the stewards I wouldn't be surprised if they've already made the decision to go ahead and disqualify him already, but as soon as he finishes the race. But nevertheless, maybe oblivious to that, I've got on my screen another 10 seconds to go on the timing. I know obviously we started with the pace lap and everything, but and there he goes again, he goes back underneath the white line. So whether or not he'll do another lap, or this will be the last lap at all, as far as I can see on the screen, 2 hours.
Should be about 4 minutes and about 20 seconds left here in the race, according to our official timing. So again, that's a real weird little elapsed time thing for iRacing. Is a little bit different, as it usually counts the pace lap and perhaps the time that the cars are sitting on the grid waiting. So that is something that you would think that they would fix, as well as give us proper gaps between the classes, so something perhaps iRacing can take back going forward and fix, get rid of that elapsed time and actually just have the race time on there, as well as perhaps show us what the actual, no kidding, time difference is between Boohan and Bubicic, because nobody really cares if the Corvettes are 4 laps down. It was pretty guaranteed that as long as the HPDs finished the race, that they weren't going to win the race. So something that iRacing can do, hopefully, and go back and fix in the future. It looks at the moment as we've only had about 4 cars retire, that being the most recent retiree was Silas Greiner, Jarrett Lawson in the GT40, as well as Jason Elrod, the only HPD to go down, and then Dennis Garrison was our first, as he is now 89 laps down. It's been really interesting for the Corvettes because, as we said earlier, the Corvettes and at Watkins Glen had kind of an unceremonious race. It was really just ugly, honestly, from the standpoint of the attrition from collisions. Now, not all of that was necessarily Corvette fault, but there was a lot of accidents, and that fact cannot be hidden. And this race, they've had their incidents, but they've done a pretty good job of racing around with each other, and they haven't been hitting each other or doing much of anything. So, so good show this race for sure by all the cars and all the classes, really. Even the retired guys kind of just fell on bad luck on their own terms. It wasn't necessarily because of another car.
There's still a debate going on in the chat below as to whether or not Fantini is going to be penalised. Hampus Anderson points that according to the rules he will not. But Soren Mogensen's come back and said, no, we don't know that. So essentially, really, I think we're still a bit up in the air as to what's exactly going to happen to Riley Fantini, as according to what I can see on the broadcast, we've got...
Yeah, sitting right at about just under 2 minutes now, so it should be just about a couple laps left here before it's all said and done here at Texas Motor Speedway for the 2012 Race Department Le Mans Series Summer Tour. Ronnie Fantini leading. Much debate on what's going to happen with his future. Marco Buin in second, or is in first in the GT1s, and Bjorn Spindle leading overall here. I keep saying overall, but I keep meaning to say GT2. My goodness. So I think I need a couple more sun drops, honestly, to fix that problem. But yeah, it will be interesting. I did see that, and I don't know. I mean, the rulebook says what it says. I don't really know. Now, I know that Hampus Andersson, he is usually a mainstay here in the league. He was with us last round. Obviously, he won last round in Watkins Glen. I don't understand, or nor do I really see how that rule can be getting around, as it looks like he's now going to come down for the white flag. This should be the white flag lap for Ronnie Fantini.
Yeah, because laps was roughly about 1 minute 9s for the LMPs, and he's crossed the line with 1 minute 58 and 58 seconds to go. So this is the last lap then for Ronnie Fantini in number 19, and he will then head through the road course section one final time. And well, when he crosses the line, either the win will stick or he is going to lose it.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with the stewards, but regardless of what has happened, even if you take away the fact that that was happening, he's put on a brilliant race here at Texas Motor Speedway. He's really mastered this oval/road course setup, and it has been fantastic as he now heads on to the oval section of the track for what should be the final time down through NASCAR and IndyCar turns 3 and then into turn 4. Ronnie Fantini. So, we've got a big wreck now, actually, as Fantini leads, but there's trouble with our GT1, with our GT1 leader. There's been a massive accident.
We need to try and see if we can look at what happened.
Trying to see exactly what's going on
it was contact with Hafner, it looks like. I'm watching here back on the replay, and let's have a look here. And Hafner is coming back from way back in turn 7. And just, I'm not quite sure what he was thinking either. He just left his braking too late, but he came from miles back into turn 7 and just harpooned the side of Buin's car, and he's a lap down anyway, so I'm not quite sure why he did that. But nonetheless, we have, of course, had our winner, which is Ter Bubicic, has come across to win GT1 ahead of Marco Buin, and Hafner comes through in 3rd place.
Unbelievable. What was he thinking? There was no chance, nor was it even for position. He's effectively cost Marco Buin the race for no reason.
He has indeed, and that's rather unfortunate. But nonetheless, rather unfortunate. But coming round onto the turns 3 and 4 for the final time, our GT2 winner, and despite an error in the first few laps, it is Bjorn Spindle who makes it 3 wins in a row then. In the number 89, across the line he comes. Congratulations to Bjorn Spindler, who takes the victory in GT2, and he will come across ahead of Oscar Salin. He's still coming around in 2nd place. Still got our GT2 driver still coming through, I think. And
yep, here comes Bjorn.
Yeah, I think Bjorn's already finished. I think he's retaken the checkered flag, I believe. I'm not quite sure who else is set to finish, who hasn't crossed the line yet. I think Oscar Salin has possibly lapped down, so I think really that kind of rounds out the race and 11 finishes.
And it's real interesting here. We've got Hafner now talking. There's some heated words actually now between Hafner and Buin. Hafner saying, "I missed the braking, so extremely sorry," and Marco Buin with some rather pointed comments, stating that it was the last bleeping lap. So those guys are going to have some words. And he said, "How can you miss the braking points?" So I agree. That was purely just ridiculous. I don't see how you miss it on the last lap with the race. With the GT1 class leader right in front of you, and you absolutely trash him and cost him the race. I don't know how I don't know how Marco is keeping himself as composed as he is. But looking here, it is it is going to be Ronnie Fantini winning on track. Tio Bubicic taking GT1 after unbelievable bad luck for Marco Buin. And in GT2, we have Bjorn Spindle taking the lead. So stay with us here at ATV Live for the Race Department Le Mans Series Summer Tour 2012. And we will be back with our press conference with the class winners here shortly. Stay tuned.
Hey dude, are you ready to rock and roll? If that's cool, then you need to do it over at HD Radio Network. HD Radio Network, 4 stations broadcasting 24/7 with everything from metal favorites to the 80s classic rock like legendary Leonard Skinner, Electric Light Orchestra, Foreigner, and bone-rattling, skull-crushing rock and roll on hard driving radio. And partnered with Nuff World Simulation Gaming, check out the HD Radio Network's Nuff Radio with Bear Factory, Stone Temple Pilots, Def Leppard, and a whole lot more. HDRadioNetwork.com. Take your pick and rock your brains out, dude.
All right, well, we are back here at Texas Motor Speedway after the 2 hours at Texas Motor Speedway, brought to you by Race Department for the Race Department Summer Tour Le Mans Series. We were not able to get all of the winners, but we did get the 2 GT1s. We have the winner of the GT1 class, Teo Bubicic, and we also have the guy who experienced massive heartbreak on the last lap, Marco Buin. We'll get to him as well. But starting off with Teo. Teo, you guys had it seemed like you GT cars were having a real hard time there on that middle portion of the racetrack, the road racing portion with the apex, the 180 apex corners there. Explain to us how tricky that actually was, keeping the car under control and also getting the power down through that portion of the track.
Yeah, it was really tricky. After the oval part, you come into this very slow for these cars, and it was I just didn't have a good setup for this middle portion, so a really bad oversteer and battled all 2 hours.
Yeah, you did have to make a pit stop that seemed to be a bit off sequence from the rest of them, and it looked like it paid off for you there. Now the field size wasn't massive, as there was only 4 GT1s, but you did have that early race incident, as I think all the Corvettes had at least one early incident in that middle section. Explain the battle at the end and exactly what was going through your mind there for the last 5 laps of that race.
Yeah, Marco came in front of me when he did his pit stop, about 6 seconds. Yeah, 6 seconds in front. I started to catch him, and I saw that Eric was behind him. I had, in the last 2 laps, I had half spin like 2 times, and I just said, no, okay, that was it, he will win. But Eric should really be careful next time, because that was awful.
Scott, do you have anything for Teo?
Well, I was just about to say, I mean, obviously, you managed to inherit the race win, obviously you had the incident early on. I mean, obviously, compared to a circuit like Watkins Glen on the course, you're moving on to Spa next. I mean, did you find it any more difficult lapping the GT2 cars, and obviously then at the same time having to get out of the way for the LMP cars, or was it just the same as any other normal track?
It was more difficult, I think. If you catch him on the oval part of the track, then it's okay. But in that middle twisty section, that it was awful. Yeah, I got spun by one. Well, I had, I don't know, two or three spins, so I really thought I will not win.
All right, well, congratulations, Tio, on your GT1 victory here at Texas Motor Speedway. Moving on to the guy who finished a very disappointing second after an early race incident, taken out in nearly the final corner of the road racing section, Marco Buin. Marco, explain to us exactly what happened there at the end of the race between you and Eric Hafner.
Well, it was a bad start, as you already mentioned, and at the end, I don't know, I was just maintaining the gap to tail, and I really didn't have enough space to let Eric pass. He was obviously faster than me, but there was no place to let him go. Well, I expected that it was the last lap, so he would just be careful as I was. And do his lap, because he wasn't able to do anything about his position. He couldn't gain position or even lose position. So, well, I'm very disappointed, of course. Who wouldn't be? And I don't know, well, we will see next race.
Oh, interesting comment there. We'll see what happens next race. Now, is this something that you are going to bring to the attention of the race stewards going forward? As it was, as you mentioned, it was a bit senseless, as he wasn't going to gain or lose anything really. I mean, I know you race to pass the cars and race to win, but obviously that was all gone as we were on the white flag lap. Is this something that you bring forward to the stewards' attention down the road?
Well, I'm not yet sure. I will let everything to come down a bit because I'm really frustrated right now, and I can't say how much. So
we don't have the delay working, Marco.
Yeah. Well, okay. I will think about it, definitely.
Okay, and Marco, now one of the things, last question, we've seen this at Watkins Glen as well. There seems to be where the Corvettes kind of have magnets that attract them to each other. And today was a lot better as far as the quality that you and the GT cars put on display at the end. Is there anything to be said about that, or do you think that, especially today, that this is a kind of a few and far between kind of an incident?
Well, it's really hard to say. I don't think that there are too many incidents, and that this one is like a common incident. It's really something not common. Well, last race was really my fault. I did a few big mistakes, and it ended my race. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not so much experienced in these cars. This is my first season with these cars, so well, I couldn't answer this right now.
All right, Scott, do you have anything for Marco before we move on to our race director?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, you had some troubles early on, Marco, into the race, but you managed to charge back up to the field to take the lead. I mean, was it as just, I suppose, touching on what we said with Teo, did you find it harder today than you would at any other circuit, compared to just due to the fact of the nature that it was both a road course with a very narrow and twisty oval section, or was it fairly easy carving back through the field through the GT2s?
Well, I took the setup to have the stable car. I made a few mistakes on the start. I locked the brakes, so I obviously hit the wall, and later on, I just concentrate and did my pace, did my setup, and did what I planned to do. So just cruise, to have a good pace, and that was it. I got to the lead, and I just tried to hang on it. All
right, well, terrible luck for you, Marco, but congratulations at least on a solid run to second place. And joining us actually now we have our race director, Yori, the guy that we really wanted to talk to because we got a couple things that actually have surfaced here. That being the rules governing a car and its ability to cross white lines, yellow lines in the rule book states that a driver will not put two wheels onto the or will not put more than two wheels down below the white lines. Yet we've seen Ronnie Fantini all race with wheels below the white line, running all the way on the bottom of the apron. Is that an infraction, and will he be excluded, or is that acceptable for this racetrack?
In my opinion, and the way the rules are written, this is an infraction. I'm really sorry that I didn't get to see this earlier than I did, because I just got home for 10 minutes ago. Yeah, this is obviously a clear case of somebody dropping below the line, thereby going off the track with all four wheels and doing this consistently. I have yet to think of the proper penalty for this, but considering the fact that it's structurally been going on the entire race, I think we are probably going to be doing a heavy penalty on it.
All right. So does that mean, are we talking exclusion, or are we talking about a points penalty, or what exactly are we talking about?
Oh, of course, I'm not, because the decision has not been made. I cannot really say what it's going to be exactly, but it's in the area of heavy points or exclusion.
All right. Also, one of the other things that we need to mention as well was that at the end of the race, we had the incident with Marco and Eric Hafner for the GT1. Obviously, nothing was going to be made by diving into the inside. Are we looking at potential penalties for Eric on that contact, as we can't really classify it a racing incident because they weren't really racing for position? And this is something that seems to have kind of cropped up from back in Watkins Glen, where we had cars making contact as well. Can we expect any kind of a penalty to Hafner for his impact, regardless of whether he missed the braking or not, into Marco?
First, I want to say that any incident between two cars can be a racing incident, or can be something that is viable for penalties. So cars don't have to be racing each other for position to be in the area of racing incidents or anything like that. I've not seen the incident in detail yet, so I definitely want to see a replay of that, and which means that the Marco will have to send a cut replay of and an incident report with it, and then I can just watch the replay and see, okay, this is a clear violation of the rules, because the rules at RaceDepartment state quite literally how to overtake in certain cases. So I don't expect any problems there in terms of reviewing the incident, but yeah, of course I cannot really say whether it has gone correctly or not correctly, and whose fault it is, or whether it's a racing incident in which no one is really to blame.
All right. Well, Scott, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Sean. Just a quick note on the turnouts there. We've only had I saw overall on the weekend 16 cars turn up, 15 qualified and one didn't start. Well, 16 qualified, 15 set times and one didn't. With such a small turnout for this race, is it a disappointment that we've had this many? And are you expecting, or are you hoping for a much more substantial field come 2 weeks' time in Spa?
I am quite disappointed to see so little turnout, because we expected somewhere in the vicinity of 25 to 30 drivers for this race, considering the people that have signed out for holidays and stuff like that. It's the kind of thing that we have to keep in mind, because it is holiday season, and I've left the entry list quite flexible in terms of allowing replacements in, and making it easy for people to sign in and out, to make it possible to do this in the holidays. It's not ideal, but well, that's what happens in holidays. But having 10 more people sign out with no actual messages or anything is quite disappointing. I do think Spa will have a better turnout, because it's at the end of August, pretty much at the end or behind or after the holiday season, and and it's Spa. People like Spa, so I think more people will be enthusiastic to race there. So I definitely have good hopes that it will have a bigger turnout.
All right, so there you have it. Again, a good race here at Texas Motor Speedway for the Race Department 2012 Le Mans Series Summer Tour. I'd like to say a special thank you to all the drivers who competed today, as well as Yori for stopping by and talking with us after the race. Special thank you to our cameraman, the Magic Fingers, John Westling, as well as our broadcast engineer, J.D. Webb. For Sean Peachin and Scott, I'm sorry, Scott, I did not have your last name wrote down.
That's cool. That's cool. That's right. For the record, surname's Woodwiss. So,
Woodwiss. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to have a quick note and just say thank you to ETV for giving me the opportunity to commentate with you guys. It's been even though the race hasn't been, admittedly, one of the more exciting races I've done so far. I have to admit, it seems to be a great stuff that you guys do here. I think that a combination of me and you, Sean's been pretty decent, and hopefully we can do that. Continue for the foreseeable future. I'm sure we can do that for Spa onwards, which I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, for all the races which are good enough for my time zone, because of course I'm down here in the UK, I'm been more than happy to continue commentating with you guys, because it seems to be it's really good. And I think hopefully the commentary I provided for you tonight alongside Sean has been acceptable, and that you've enjoyed it, and it's been pretty decent for you guys to listen to, and hope it's made the race a bit more entertaining than it originally really has been on track. So yeah, basically thanks to Race Department for putting the race on, and thanks to ETV for giving me the chance to commentate with you guys, really.
Well, thanks, Scott, and actually you stole the show, so fantastic job. Your information was phenomenal.
Shucks! Don't stop it. You're too kind.
Should we give out medals?
Yeah.
Olympics.
Yeah, there we go. Chalk up another gold medal for Team GB in the Olympics. But no.
Hey, you guys lead medals tables. We need all the medals we can get. So.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what we do. But special thanks, Scott, for coming on, Scott, and for Sean Peach and Scott Woodwiss. We will see you next time here at ETV Live for the Race Department iRacing Le Mans Series 2012 Summer Tour. Good night.